the Efed podcast, the podcast exploring our fantasy wrestling hobby, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real. Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Efed podcast here on the Atomic Dropcast Network, episode 73. Here today on the show, we're interviewing Andy Bloxam, the handler of Zero, many years ago in feds such as HEW, the CWL, CSWA, and the FWO. He's had many good friends on the show recently talking about him, including Jamar and Paul Briz. So I'm excited to bring the man on and get his side of the story, and it's almost like a deeper dive into our other interviews. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, if you have been a patron over at patreon.com/Efed podcast, you would have heard this interview many weeks ago because it was a Patreon episode, and now we're bringing it to the masses for episode 73.
So you could say we're kind of fast to nowhere.
Going fast to nowhere. Brian, we've got Brian on the show, co-host and producer. Excited to have him here and talk to you guys today on the Efed podcast. We're bringing it back. I guess we're both feeling better, Brian. How about you? I guess I just mentioned you.
Much better. Given that you're out there in the field, you sound a little nasally given the phone, but it sounds fantastic regardless. I'm feeling much better. Hope you are too.
Yes, sir. And that's right. I am in the field like Billy today. We are out here. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, trying to hunt down the Heartbreak Kid himself so I can give him a super kick to the mush and show Brian that he's really not the GOAT.
You don't have to remember the Alamo. You just have to remember to keep your smile.
I did see the Alamo while I was down here. So, yeah, lots of good sights here in San Antonio. I'm down here for work. I'm having a good time. I got to hang out with Tony, who we've all talked to recently on the podcast. So having a great time, honestly. It's nice to get back out into the world. This is my first trip in 15 months. Ooh. And it's nice not to have to wear a mask anymore, Brian.
I don't know the feeling.
Ohio is maskless and Texas is maskless too. So I will say, due to the heat, I couldn't be more excited to go home tomorrow.
Oh, man, I can't even imagine that Tejas heat.
We're looking at 104 at night. So it's insane right now. The humidity is through the roof. And I'm hyped to go back to Ohio and see all my peeps, including Brock, who thinks he's 45 minutes away from me.
That 8-hour flight would say different.
That's right. Well, Brian, we're going to talk about the Efed stuff here today, too. We've got Andy Bloxam, like I mentioned on the interview. We've got the question of the week, and we've got a live interview with a Fed head. We're going to be doing some little bit different spotlight action this week. I'm excited to bring it to you.
A spicy spotlight.
There you go. We're going to do all that and much more. Of course, please check out our sponsors here on the show. You're going to hear from them shortly, unless you're a legend, over at patreon.com/Efed podcast.
The Efed podcast is a totally free podcast that drops each and every single week for your e-wrestling ears on a multitude of apps. If you'd like to support the show, however, the best way to do so is over at patreon.com/Efed podcast. For as little as $3 a month, you can support both Brian and myself as we crank out more e-wrestling content with perks such as early releases and special Discord designations. And if that's not enough EW action for you, jump up to the $10 a month tier and you can get a free EWT's t-shirt design, early and ad-free editions of the show, as well as access to our monthly Q&As, bad graps, and more. And if you'd like to be a sponsor on the show and get your ad played, the best way to do that is the sponsor level on Patreon, with all of the previous perks, plus weekly commercials on the show. Check it out over at patreon.com/Efed podcast. We greatly appreciate your consideration.
Occupy Pro Wrestling, putting the smart back into smart mark since 2012, with a community on Discord and message boards, merchandise, a weekly vodcast on Twitch, and much more. Check out everything from us and our site partners at OccupyProWrestling.com.
Efed Tees, the #1 source for Efed merchandise, offering custom merchandise made for your wrestler, tag team, stable, or Efed. Whether you want a high-quality t-shirt, face mask, hoodie, hat, it doesn't matter. We can help you out over at efedtees.com. Do you have a custom logo for your wrestler? Awesome. We're going to slap it on a shirt and help you out real fast. If not, no problem at all. We have a custom design service too. You can work with a graphic artist to get the perfect design made for your character. Go on over to EWTees.com and click on Want a Shirt to get your shirt started. EFedTees.com.
For over a decade, Defiance Wrestling has redefined what an Efed can be. An angle fed with a rich history and a colorful cast of characters, Defiance Wrestling offers a drama-free environment with some of the most experienced and talented writers in the history of the game, with a level of consistency that few other promotions can offer. With on-time events, micro offerings, and even a long-form in-character radio show, as well as a forum home on the classic fwrestling.com, nobody, I said it, nobody does fantasy wrestling quite like Defiance. Come, see what all the buzz is about. Come check out DefianceWrestling.com. You heard me. It's DefianceWrestling.com. I'll see you there.
All right, everybody, it's time for the Efed Podcast question of the week. And this week's question of the week, what is your character's catchphrase or the thing that they're known to say?
Ooh.
Brian, typically we answer this on the front end of the show, but I thought it'd be fun to save it for now. And ironically, I mean, I just retired your character, so I guess he doesn't say anything.
All right. Calm down. To be fair, before you retired him, he didn't say much then either.
No, he did not. But did Scott Douglas have a catchphrase, Brian?
Oh, man. This ends tonight.
There you go. And it did end tonight.
He said it many times, and he ended some things, and then some things ended him. Some unlikely things ended him.
You love to see it, Christy.
I'm about to say, well, there you go. What are some Mikey catchphrases? Because he's full of them.
Full of them. So you love to see it, Christy. You hate to see it. Mikey is known for also reciting movie quotes such as, "Hey, you don't say that."
Yep.
And "No one makes me bleed my own blood." Not to mention Mikey money.
Yeah. I've always said that.
I've always said that. Yeah, but I said it first. If you throw in the bruvs, it's just there's just an unbelievable amount of catchphrases.
I don't know that you could document it, but I'm sure many times it's been said, "Where's my frappe?"
Yes. Where's that frap?
Yep.
A frap attack, all those things.
Frap life. You can get that shirt over at EWTs.com.
.com, as well as the Mikey money, accepted nearly nowhere.
Not even at EWTs.com.
As well as a couple other shirts of Mikey Unlikely Variety. So check them out over at efedtees.com, EWTees.com.
We got them all in.
But yeah, exactly. In the meantime, we're going to read off your catchphrases. I'm excited to see what some other people use.
Indeed.
So over on the Twitter machine, we've got @Yinzer says what?
What?
And Morgan uses yins instead of y'all. It's regional slang because she comes from Pittsburgh. She also tends to say cheese and crackers instead of Jesus Christ when she gets frustrated. And her big thing is, however, comma.
Chameleon.
Come and go. At DB Messiah Mayhem on Twitter, it's Dylan Black. Not a thing he says, but Dylan Black makes a shaka and runs it across his throat to signify the end of a match or promo.
Okay. More of a catch hand gesture.
Sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sign language.
I'll accept it. Boucher Trey. It's Trey Boucher is up next.
You could do it.
Bobby Boucher. Okay. Trey talks about putting people up, but not over. My other main is an ex-Scoutmaster. He always says, be prepared, and Scout's honor as callbacks to the gimmick.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm with
Scout's honor is a good one.
Yeah.
It's something we said back when I was a Weeblo.
I've heard it both ways.
I've heard it both ways. Greg Ward, the boss. Greg Ward Jr. on Twitter. It's about time that Greg Ward something.
Something.
Not to mention.
Dark side.
Not to mention Greg Ward, and that is cool. Also, because God forgives. Los Perros, no.
Ooh.
I don't speak Spanish.
I don't speak Spanish, but I mean, I'm you ate the entire cheese wheel. I'm impressed.
I'm here in San Antonio, and Spanish is very prevalent. I had an Uber driver who only spoke Spanish, and that was an interesting ride.
Mucho Mikey money. Mucho Mikey De Niro.
Muy caliente, es San Antonio. All right. The goddess Terra is Terra Phoenix. She also says Skull, Valhalla, but that's for the lone Ulf. Terra doesn't really have any.
Ooh. Yeah,
He must be one of those Viking types.
Yeah, I'm reserving any comment. We've gotten in trouble with these Viking cats before.
Skull. That's like that's the Minnesota Vikings thing.
Yeah. Skull. That's in the South. That's like the dip.
The chew you put in your mouth.
Put it in their lip. What you chewing on? Skull.
At the Roozy one, it's Roozilla on Twitter. I'm not that guy. He badmouths his opponents, and then he says he wouldn't say those things because he's not that guy.
Oh.
That's good moves. I like that. At ODJ7 Deadly Sins, it's Cholo Giovanni Santana. I didn't know catchphrases were a thing in 2021. As an old timer who had the lamest, more common ones back in the day, I'm very glad to hear it. None of my current characters have any, and that's probably a good thing.
There you go. Keeping it OG.
You love to see it, Christy. At Armenian Beast on Twitter, if you encounter Karma Tenzin, the Bhutanese beast, in his own home, he won't offer you a nice buttered tea before you're able to draw a single breath.
All right. I'd suggest, much like with the names, I'd suggest economy of words, but all right.
Also, Philip Legault at Armenian Beast. As for the Armenian Beast, some clever fellow with a marketing degree at VOW back in 2004 bestowed upon Gergen the tagline, dumber than most plant life.
Okay. All right.
On those rare occasions when he's not absolutely shit-faced, he can actually pronounce the very words in that order.
I like that.
At User Poets is up next, Brian. Do you know this guy?
I heard that maybe he wrote like a book.
By Pete's book.
Legend of Valerian's Garden.
Quote, are you fucking kidding me, you stupid son of a whore? Whoa, Pete. Ivy McGinnis, wife and mother.
I mean, hold on. To go back to my former comment, the Boots and Beast, for an author, Pete, come on, son. Economy of words. By Pete's book.
At Caloweezy, it's Stephen Calloway on Twitter. I always have an angle. Always. He stole it from a WCW comic, got to the point where people call him the Angle Man.
Oh, Mr. Angle. Maybe Kurt Angle?
Acute? Okay. At PWS Bella Phoenix, it's Elizabeth Bella Madison O'Connell. Quite a name there.
Wow. Economy of names.
Her quote is second gen, not to be fucked with. Man, you can't say the things in wrestling today you can't say the things you used to say today. Wait, I got that backwards. People's dropping F-bombs in their sayings is all I'm saying.
If people in the wrestling today can curse, I mean, I kind of think it's a win-win-win.
In this case, everybody wins. At Rogan Mac is up next. It's Rogan McLean. Shake the hand that shook the world.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I like that.
That's pretty good. I mean, if he's got like the hype and the clout to back that up, that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah. At Toast. Okay. On Twitter.
All right. I'm calling foul right there. At Toast, it should be butter me.
Well, his tagline is "Ooh, toasty."
Okay, all right. Come on, but like, you should be like, butter me. You really gonna go heel? Like Nutella, bitch. I don't know.
Brian, I think you're familiar with this next one. At the Jaybird 904. Welcome to the House of Hollis.
Oh yes, we did a shirt for the House of Hollis. Over on EWTees.com, EFedTees.com. Fantastic shirt. And sold very well.
.com.
Sold very well. You should go over there and check it out for sure.
Absolutely. EFedTees.com. I believe that's a WEW shirt.
I was reticent to say that because I don't remember, but now that you've said it, yes, it is. I do believe.
At Dorian Rhodes 20 is up next.
Dorian.
They say I'm a villain, but I'm actually 51% babyface and only 49% bad guy.
I don't like that.
It's a little little over the kayfabe line, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's a little post Vince 93. I don't like it.
At Megan Kelser on Twitter, God forgives, I don't.
Okay, kind of an old mainstay classic.
Yeah, I can work with that.
Hey. Some things need to be rehashed here and there.
You love to see it.
You love
At Mr. Styles 404 on Twitter,
Good God.
what's big money to small change?
Okay. All right.
He's also got another one. 2 words, 1 win. Ball game.
I mean, 2 words, 1 win, ball. That could have went so many different ways. I'm glad I went ball game. Is he part of the softball academy? Because you can get that shirt over at EWTs.com.
I have no idea. He is Mr. Ball Game. That's his nickname.
Oh, okay. Mr. 3000. I hear you.
At Damian Kane AW from Action Wrestling is up next. I used to always end my RPs with a simple checkmate in reference to an RP I did in my first Fed that was entirely chess-based.
Oh, okay. All right. He should check out a song by Apathy called Checkmate. All about chess.
You should check out any song by Apathy.
You really
Man, it's
should.
fire.
You really should. But his one in particular, straight through verse, called Checkmate. It's a story told through a chessboard. Good stuff.
Well, listen, Brian, I may be the king of this game, and you may be my queen, but we'll never be pawns. Okay, I'm done.
Hold on. How did I become the queen?
Moving on. Akira Razor's up next. At Akira Razor on Twitter. Enter my domain and you'll leave in pain.
Okay. Hey, rhymes. What
Catchy, rhymey, rappy.
Yeah. Rappy. I rap and a rap and a rhyme and a rhyme.
Clap your hands, everybody.
Everybody, clap your hands.
If you got what it takes. Okay. At Wrestling Cartel, it's Insurgents Wrestling Cartel.
Mm-hmm.
My character has no particular catchphrase, but will refer to himself with terms like billion-dollar emperor and modern-day Renaissance man. He's a very humble guy.
Okay, hold on, bud. Hold on. Those are nicknames. You didn't follow the rules.
Not catchphrases.
Much like Pete last episode, you didn't follow the rules. We will not promote your book.
Sorry about the Insurgent Wrestling Cartel book. At Magnum G 1999, it's Malik Garland.
Oh, Jesus.
That's not his catchphrase, Brian.
It should be. That's what everyone says when they hear his name.
I love his, though. You ready for it?
Yep.
Wow. Lots to unpack here. That's so good.
Yeah, you'd be like, hey, Malik, how's it going? Wow.
Oh, wow.
Lots to
unpack here.
Oh, Ross, you are the worst.
The worst best. Okay. The super best.
Super best.
At Daniels_Brett, it's Brett Daniels. I'm a moonshine swillin', fine cut dippin', 100% badass.
See, now we're back to Skull. Fine.
Hey, but he's got the gimmick down, though.
Yeah,
you can
right?
tell immediately what kind of gimmick it is.
Fine cut dipping. Skull. Wintergreen.
Skull.
The hell with Valhalla. We're talking about Wintergreen.
Fine cut. All right. At the Goddess Tara on Twitter, it's Tara Phoenix. I take it back. One thing I've had Tara say recently is kneel.
Kneel before Zod.
All right. I'm down.
I'm with it. I mean, kind of some Me Too shit, but all right.
At Unleash Z Dragon.
Z Dragon.
Don't think I've ever had one. One of my first feuds was with a guy who used, and that's the turkey jerky. And I figured I could never make one better than that.
Oh, time out. All right. All jokes aside, you can make
Did you
one.
just call me a jive turkey?
Well, I mean, hey, banter, jive, all the same.
Love me some semi-pro.
Hey, Tropic Thunder.
At Jack Savage up next. Oh, I'm sorry. At Jack Savage End on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Greed is good. Greed is right. Greed is a way of life.
Okay. All right.
I think this guy might be a fit for 24K.
Ooh, yeah. You know, it sounds like a little bit of the twist on that old speech from the original Wall Street, not that shitty sequel. Greed, for the lack of a better word, is good. Michael Douglas.
Greed is good.
Michael Douglas delivered it much better.
Up next is Bane_Mac. It's Mac Bane.
Mac Bane.
It started out as I'll be the bane of your existence, but these days I use I'm very good at what I do. Unfortunately for you, what I do isn't very nice.
Economy of words. I think the
Brian.
I think the original is better.
I've got a very special set of skills.
And they include getting drunk in San Antonio.
That's my main skill this week.
And not
No doubt about that.
not finding the Alamo, but not finding the Heartbreak Kid.
He's probably in the Alamo. I didn't go inside.
Well, again, right there, due diligence. I'm disappointed.
And finally on Twitter, it's at Whammy Bar, Griffin Hawkins.
Wow.
Somebody's going to get rocked.
That's pretty good. All right.
Yeah, it fits the gimmick.
Yep.
Yeah, good stuff, guys. I appreciate you guys contributing on Twitter. Of course, you can catch the EFED Podcast question of the week on Twitter at the EFED Podcast. Brian, what did we get on the Discord side of things?
Oh, I'm sure quite a bit. First up, I believe a man you met this very week, Tony.com. He says, quote, you can bet on that, end quote.
Is he a gambling man?
I mean, maybe. You met him. You'd have to tell me. Does he know when to hold him? Does he know when to fold him?
He doesn't know when to walk away. That's for sure.
and that I can bet you know for certain. Yes, that was his deal. And next up, and before I even read it, we'll see. We'll see. Does he get fired this week? It's Cat Pasadena. Everybody's favorite unemployed wrestler.
Well, you know what's cool about Pat Cassidy, Brian? We can now fire him from 2 feds.
Oh, man.
Double the firing.
Fantastic. Well, hold on. He joined yours?
Yeah. Classic-wrestling.com.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. All right. Well, he's fired for mine. So Cat Pasadena, or Pat Cassidy, as we know him in Def, who knows what he's doing over there at that weirdo classic.wrestling.com. Cassidy will refer to you as Kid. Kilgore will call you Baby every 20 seconds. And
Kilgore is a fun character.
And that's his character at Classic?
Yeah, Feral Freddy Kilgore.
Oh, there you go. He better. I mean, it's a good thing it's fun because he's fired as Pat Cassidy. Cassidy will refer to you as Kid. Kilgore will call you Baby every 20 seconds. And to reform, well, okay, it's worded oddly. So Ned reform. To Ned reform, you're his pupil, or an eager young mind.
So he just calls people names.
It seems like, and again, I had to go back to, at least for Ned Reform, Joe, that sounds a little Me Too-ish. Up next, to be fired from Defiance, Seth is Burns. Seth's got, 1,004 characters. First up for him, he's got Oscar Burns calling everyone GC, which I myself have asked Seth about this several times. Like, what's that mean? It's a shorthand for good chap.
Good Charlotte.
Oh, close. Good chap. Or referring to, I'm continuing what he was saying. Not that GC could mean these extra things. But yeah, so calling everyone GC, good chap, or referring to fans as Team Graps. Because as we all know, Oscar Burns, twist and turns Oscar Burns. He likes Graps.
He does like Graps. You can get the I Like Graps t-shirt over at EWT.com.
And his other character, ADV, Alvaro Vargas, I think. I'm sorry. It's in my Fed, but I've seen the initials more so than I've seen the name.
More than the name, yeah.
Yeah, so but calling everyone pendejos.
Pendejo.
Which I think translates as slur. Anyway, moving on. Up next with her corrected name, so it doesn't sound like we're saying, "Oh shit, what is she doing here?" I'm Meg. Damn it.
Damn it.
Meg, you always roll with the punches. You gotta love it.
Meg is terrific.
So for Brittany. Again, this is going to be a thing where we read it off and it just sounds bad. I'm gonna read both nonstop. Brittany, cake ass. Megan G, balls to the walls.
All right, cake ass. Let's move on.
What you doing here with all that cake?
That said, we do need a cake ass shirt over at EWT.com.
Hey! Following up, Meg, damn it, is Sober David, who obviously is very intertwined with Meg and her dealings, both on 5BW, 5BorrowsWrestling.com and
.com, and of course you can check out his interview on efedpodcast.com.
100%, and also you could check out their other venture, Softball Night Academy. They got some shirts over there too. So he says Amy Harrison, her catchphrase is STFU. Larissa Johnson.
What's it stand for?
Shut the front
up
urinal.
Why would a female be saying that? We don't know.
Well, because she's a female and can't use the urinal. So shut that urinal and give her way to a proper bathroom. Treat her like a lady. Jesus. Is chivalry dead?
Chivalry is dead.
Yeah, especially when I say it like shivery instead of chivalry. Hey, whatever. All right, so we're drinking. Larissa Johnson's got a really, really snappy catchphrase. I like it. It's speaking of economy words. Shut up.
That's fairly simple.
Hey, if delivered correctly, it's just to go. Carrie,
it's effective as all get out.
Exactly. Yeah. Carrie and Quinn is a smiley face emoji, apparently.
Kieran Quinn.
Karen. Okay. Karen Quinn, smiley face.
It's a smiling man.
Or open parentheses, or just a smiley face of some kind on every tweet because reasons. Okay, so that's less of a catchphrase and more of just something that's on a tweet. But all right, cool. Moving on, our good friend from TW Combat, Tom Johnson, a.k.a. John Thompson. Hashtag, I'm sorry. Folks, I apologize. #. The TW Combat Show, when there's a lot of TW Combat Sports representatives on a fight card.
There you go.
I read that verbatim and I don't understand it.
TW Combat is a MMA camp for an MMA Fed. And so whenever they got a bunch of people on the show, he likes to tweet out the hashtag to get some promo action.
Oh, I get it. That # and the following words, that's the catchphrase.
Yes, sir.
I got you. I'm used to #. I don't know. Anyway, up next, it's MDG. It's Warren. Modern Day Gladiators. You can check that out, of course, at
Drive-Thru RPG.
There you go. Deegan's line is, faith is the evidence.
For a guy who's a mute, that's a lot of words.
It really is. Come on, Warren. Economy of words, bud. Anyway, and also faith is not evidence, but whatever. Lunar Express, or the LE, have an ongoing gag with their manager, William H. Bradley III, when he says something they don't like. And he gives a quick example. So Ethan Hale will be like, Willie. And William H. is like, it's Will. And he gets cut off by both Ethan Hale and Grant.
Willie.
I don't know Grant's last name. So Ethan Hale, Willie. William H. It's what, and they both jump in. Whatever. So the catchphrase is whatever. Less a catchphrase, more of a bit, a gag. A recurring gag they do.
There's nothing I like more than reoccurring gags.
There's no better way to shut someone up than reoccurring gags. Here we go, folks. Up next, one of my favorites, and I've never read a thing he's ever written, wrote, played. I don't know even what kind of Fed he's in, but it's our good friend Elias, aka Alias, aka Pseudonym, aka
Anonymous.
Anonymous. He says whatever that character Pseudonym's catchphrase is, open quote, eat, space, end quote. Opponent, group, some other relevant thing as a statement of intent to destroy them. E.g., folks, I'm using example. Eat, Mikey Unlikely, or eat the Efed podcast. Well, if you're going to eat for it, you going to eat. Well, if you're going to eat it,
hold on, don't go eating the podcast now. I'm trying to get it over.
But if you want to eat it, you better pay for
it. Over at patreon.com/Efed podcast.
.com. All right, keep it moving. Skip that. Skip that. And a Highlander 4H. Oh shit, we should skip that.
Oh shit, Ron Hall McDonald.
Well, we should probably we'll do this because if nothing else, this is finally a statement of fact. The first one you've ever heard from him. I'm retired.
That is a statement of fact. Thank you, Ron, for your retirement. We hope that you'll be leaving our chat soon. No, I'm kidding.
Hey.
Ron's talking about making a pilgrimage up to my neck of the woods, and honestly, I'm going to go into hiding, like Shawn Michaels.
Here's what you got to do: you have to go on Google Maps. You have to triangulate the furthest distance you can get from the nearest Panera Breads.
So, like Canada. It's all Tim Hortons up there. Timmy's.
All right. So keeping it moving. Jesse Jamester. He's referencing Ron's incredibly creative, inspired, I'm retired. And he just says, until I'm not. So apparently there's some heat. There's some heat, folks. We got a grudge match coming up in a Fed that no one will take. Jesse Jamester versus Ron Hall McDonald. It's a grudge match.
You hate to see it, Christy.
You hate to see it. You hate to see it, but you love to see it because you'll never see it. It's never gonna happen. And hold on, we've had a real rash of this. Here we go again. Come on, folks. Don't double down. We got the Shadow Pope. It's Pete Russo.
He likes to answer both places, doesn't he?
He does. Oh, I don't think he did it on the one that the other two did it. Fuzz and Ron. But anyway, he says, my peeps. I'm assuming he's his characters. My peeps never really had catchphrases. Closest that I ever had was Impulse with the messenger is not important.
I believe that.
I do too. I'd imagine Impulse is like kind of no nonsense guy. I can't imagine he would ever be into like
catchphrase. Yeah.
Well, no, I can't imagine he'd ever really be into AOL Instant Messenger. So the messenger's not important.
The messenger is not important. It's obsolete.
It is now for sure.
No, but yeah, with Pete, the Second Coming, with Ivy McGinnis, we heard Ivy's earlier, but
That's right. There you go. So at least you split it up. Ivy and Impulse. Okay.
Yeah, we got a different answer on each. So
yeah, I mean, and
you love to see it, Christy.
Just to goad him possibly into more activity with the Efed podcast, I'll say because he didn't answer it, so I'll say probably Eli Flares would be like, I shouldn't have beat K9 so many times.
That's a good catchphrase.
That's a solid one, right? So
I think it's catching on already.
Last but not least, on the Discord, Jesse Jamester is back with a real one, not just a comment. He says, expect the unexpected was my catchphrase. It ain't personal. It's just business was my newest one when returning to Efedding.
There you go. I mean, if they're coming back to Efedding, they got to get some kind of niche character down, some kind of gimmick. It sounds like he's finding his path.
I would add to that, Jesse. I would add, go away, Ron Hall.
Just make it official across the board.
Yeah, as everybody knows. But yeah, that wraps it up for Discord. Everyone who answered in Discord, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Check out the Discord. The link is in the Twitter profile at twitter.com/the Efed podcast. Just click on the Discord link. You should be invited right in and jump in the community and chat with us.
100%. If you answer in the Discord, you're liable to catch way more shit than Twitter because we probably know you a little
just because we can all respond. Yeah. Well, good deal, guys. Thanks for participating in this week's Efed podcast question of the week. Of course, you can check it out each and every episode. We've got a new one posted up right now for you to check out on Twitter and on the Discord machine.
Did you know that EWTs.com is the only home of Defiance Wrestling merchandise? Actual, factual Defiance merchandise? It's true! EWTs.com is your #1 source for e-wrestling t-shirts and more. Design a shirt for your favorite character, tag team, or stable, and sell them shits online for actual, factual money. Don't believe me? Let's ask this random woman on the street. Hey, what do you think about EWTs.com?
What are you doing? I don't want to do this.
I just wanted to talk to you about all the benefits of using EWTs.com.
Seriously? I'm busy. I don't have time for this right now.
But ordering from EWTs takes no time at all. Honey, work with me here. EWTs, come on.
I don't even know what this is. What is an EWT?
Well, you can also find them at efedtees.com.
Or is it OO? Is it OO tees? This is dumb.
It's not dumb. It's an amazing idea. An idea you can be a part of at home.
You are dumb.
You know, design shirts for your favorite character or tag team, or buy the shirt of your favorite characters.
What do you mean characters? Are you a child?
Only at EWTs.com. Just check it out, please.
Please close the door behind you when you leave.
Thanks for the help, babe. For more info, go to EWTs.com.
Hey, everybody, we're back with another edition of the Efed Podcast Spotlight, where we take a look at a Fed that's out there, tell you a little bit more about him, and see if it's a good fit for you. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. I'm joined by Luke. He's the new Fed head of Oath Pro Wrestle. So excited to bring him on the show and talk about this Fed. Luke, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for asking. I hope you're doing well as well.
I am doing well. I'm recovering. Luke has the esteem of being the first person I ever no-showed on the Efed podcast. So sorry to do it.
Oh man, that's going on my wall right there. He's the first person that Mikey canceled on.
He was super cool about it, so I was glad to do this and get back to it and get Oath Pro Wrestle out there. We're going to air this one week. We're going to put it back on there in rotation and get some more hype for you guys. So I'm excited to see what's going on over at Oath. Tell me about how you ended up becoming the new Fed head.
All right. So when Oath went on the extended hiatus the first time with the previous owner, I was devastated. I love this place. This is the first place I came to when I got into a core Efedding. So
Yeah.
this was it was massive for me to see it go under because I'd put so much time in with like my main characters that this was like my home for me pretty much. I was like bounced around with a couple other places, and I was like, nothing fits as well as this did for me.
Yeah,
So
when
I messaged him one day, and I was like, "Hey, you ever plan on doing anything with it?" And he's like, "Do you want to take the reins?" Yeah, that's pretty much it.
well, that's where I was going with it. Yeah. So no, that's awesome. You got to take on the Fed that you found home, that you made your own home, and now you're running the show. And so tell us about Oath. What kind of Fed is it? Is it an angle, a role play Fed? What's the deal?
It's a hybrid between the two. So it's the main focus is on the angled side, but there is RP elements to it with people submitting segments or these strat forms.
Okay.
Strat forms are like it's a questionnaire that they fill out before each show, and they like what's their character's mindset going into it, how will they react to a win, a loss, any specific details you want the commentary to highlight.
Nice.
It's very good. This was brought in by the previous owner, and he like said that I needed to make a new one because it was all connected to his Google account. So yeah, it was something that I wanted to bring back when I got the reins, and it's just I think it's very good. Yeah, it's the details for the entrance, the mindset. Do they have a specific strategy? Spots you would like to see, and how they react to a win or a loss, and if they want to have a pre or post match promo, then they put it in there.
That's awesome. So you're really enhancing your match writers and giving them the ability to get a look inside the mind of the wrestler.
Oh yeah, definitely. It definitely makes it a whole lot easier for writing matches because you know exactly what they want to see instead of crossing your fingers and hoping that they enjoy the match.
100%. And that's what most people are used to. So it's cool that you're doing both. You have the angles going on, but you're also each handler, is submitting strats and promos and all kinds of different ways to interact with the Fed.
Yeah, exactly. Like the segments is a pretty good one that I got so many for the return show that I got to put into the match the show yet. Oh man.
So how does the Fed operate as far as like how often are the shows and let's do this. Where can people find Oath Pro Wrestle?
All right, so they can find us at oathprowrestling.boards.net for the forum, and then on Twitter at oathprowrestle, which has a direct link to the Wix site.
There you go.
Which also it has a direct link to the forum from the Wix site.
So there you go. That's how you can find Oath Pro Wrestle. Meanwhile, talk about how often the shows are.
Well, we got two main shows, which is Livewire and Conviction.
Okay.
They were running twice a week, those two, which was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. But with me taking up that reign, we've for this return show, I gave them like 3 weeks to get everything they wanted in, so I could just get used to running a show because this is the first time that I've actually
been
properly ran a Fed. Yeah.
Well, that's all right. I mean, we all got to start somewhere. I'm running a Fed for my first time after 20 years too, so it's all good.
Man, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's a whole new game, brother.
Oh man.
So
that's one way of putting it.
So how often are the shows now? Right now you did the one big comeback show, and what are you planning on running after that?
Still in the process of writing that one. After that, I'm planning on bringing back Conviction, and hopefully, if we have enough people coming back, I'm going to bring back Livewire as well.
There you go. So nice, strong shows that have already basically stood the test of time, and now you're just bringing them back. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, and then they got the super shows that happen every 3-4 weeks. So that's also a thing that I'm looking to bring in, but I'm also trying to put my own sort of twist on it and do like how Progress does their chapters.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm thinking of doing something like that.
Nice.
I've got to properly figure out how I want to incorporate that into the story of Oath.
So what about word limits, rules, those kind of things? Obviously, you're not writing proper role plays, but otherwise.
Oh no, it's the segments and stuff. I don't really mind how far they go into it, as long as it's not like 3,000 words that I've got to put into the show somehow. Like there is like a suggested limit for segments, which is 1,000, but that's like you can do
It's a
however much you want over it.
loose suggestion.
It's a loose suggestion. Like, we don't force people to stick by that. Hell, I wrote a segment once that was like 2,500 words, and so you're pretty fine when it comes to word limits. It's not, as long as it's not like too over the top, you know.
It's pretty simple. I mean, just go with the flow. You see the show, you see how people interact. Just try to keep it about the same.
Yeah, pretty much.
And when you come back, what kind of active championships are we talking about?
Well, we got the World Championship, which is currently being held by Matt Shields. He put in some serious work before Oath went under. He lost the title to, I'm trying to think who he lost it to.
So the champions are coming back. Are they coming back with their championships?
Yes, they are.
Beautiful.
Matt Shields, he didn't lose it. What was it? I don't know what the story was. He lost to Ryo Ojima, who recently departed from the Efed world. He's gone and doing stuff outside of it. Or outside of Oath and other feds that I was in. He lost to him, and then he built this whole story about rescuing the championship, which he had named Blanche. And that's the whole thing. He won the skeleton key from someone who had just won it the week previous, which is our version of Money in the Bank.
And
he can insert himself into a match for the title, for any title. He chose to do it for the world title, and he won it at the last big show before Oath, closed its doors.
Well, good. It's nice that you have some continuity between the last show and the next show when he comes back with the heavyweight championship.
Yeah, and then you got the Intrepid Championship, which is one that's, I think, is a pretty cool championship. I think it's it's like a workhorse title.
Yeah.
Like there's every champion that wins this has like earned it. Like
you're probably on your way.
Yeah, on your way to a world championship shot. There's actually, coming on to that, the Livewire Championship. That is another fun title. I held that title. I was the first champion to make it to 5 successful defenses.
Nice. Congratulations.
And when I made it to that, you could, it's 5 championship defenses for a shot at the Tabula Rasa Championship. And then after that's 5 more for the Intrepid. Then after that's 5 more for the world title. It used to be 5, 7, 10, but now it's 5, 5, 5 because no one made it past the first hurdle.
Yeah, that makes it pretty tough.
Oh yeah, it definitely does. And then you're going back to the Tabula Rasa Championship. That is a very interesting one. The person that wins that, they get to decide what stipulation it's defended under.
Nice.
So the first champion decided to stick would be First Blood. Then after that was a Soul Survivor match. Now, this is before my time in this company, so I don't know what a Soul Survivor match is.
I assume, is it to the death?
I honestly could not tell you. Then after that, it's a 2 out of 3 falls, then a submission, then 15-minute Iron Man. I think that's what it was. Another 2 out of 3. Bloodsport, which was pretty fun. War Queen Rules. I have no idea what that was. And then James Edwards, who unfortunately is not returning to Oath, which pained me because he is so reliable when it came to like segments and stuff and storylines. He had it for 91 days. I think he was the longest reigning. Yeah, he was 91 days, and he had a submission count anywhere, which was super fun.
That's a little different. Yeah, nice twist.
And then we have El Diablo Blanco, who's so much fun.
Yes, he's a great Twitter follow.
Oh, honestly, if you're not following him, you need to. He's so much fun.
So good. The little Diablos or Diablitos.
Yeah. He's currently got the title, and the stipulation is LD's House of Fun, which is the ring, and then you got trampolines surrounding it with ropes that you can swing into the ring on.
Oh my goodness. Is it Backyardarama again?
Yeah, probably. If he were to draw it out, that'd probably be what it was. And then, of course, you have the Tag Team Championships, which unfortunately is vacated, but we are crowning new champions on the return show.
There you go. So you've got some champions coming back, some new champions to be crowned. that makes for a lot of excitement when you bring back an Efed, because not only do the old guard get their bit, but the new guard have an opportunity to take something.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we got some big names. Well, I say big names in O's story returning as well, which should be super fun.
That leads right into my next question: is like, who are some of the top wrestlers you have over there? No specific order.
Oh, that's a very good question. I honestly, if I had to list it out, I'd have to say, like the champions, really. They're the ones that have been putting in the grind for, at least for Oath to come back. They were the ones that were, if you need me, I'm there. They were backing me when I wanted to bring it back. So you got Matt Shields, Minoru Tanahashi, Stephanie Matsuda, who's another very reliable rider and handler.
Yep.
El Diablo Blanco, Alan Cheney, they're very reliable as well. AJ Jenkins, I think that's how you say his name. I'm not sure. They never really specify how to say it. I had a feud with him where I called him AJ Jenkins just to piss him off. So, yeah, they're some of the ones that are probably more. You got Alex Andrews as well, Callie Resnick, Jenna Sharp. Yeah, some really talented people on our roster currently.
That's awesome. It sounds like a great mix of people too.
Oh, it's a great time. Honestly.
Wild characters and serious ones too.
Oh, yeah.
So hit us again with the Twitter and the website link.
So you got on Twitter, it is at Oath Pro Wrestle, and then the website. Well, to go to the forum, it's oathprowrestling.boards.net. The Twitter has a direct link to the Wix site, which is oathprowrestling.wixsite.com, and from there you can go to the forum and you can go find the Twitter from there as well.
That's awesome. And so obviously you're definitely looking for new members, right?
Oh, absolutely. We've had some people that have unfortunately had to part ways with Oath, which is, I understand, real life happens and all that.
Yep.
And you lose time to, you lose your free time to spend on e-fedding. So yeah, we are definitely looking for new members to join the ranks and take the pledge.
That's awesome. And I can tell you, I've been following Oath for a long time on Twitter. I can see the conviction logo in my head as we sit here and talk about it. Just seeing them post the shows all the time. But yeah, definitely everybody out there, give them a try at Oath Pro Wrestle on Twitter. It's a great Fed with a great following. They've got a nice Discord community too. And hopefully you can get involved and see what the new relaunch looks like.
Yeah, I reckon it's going to be great. I reckon people are going to love it.
So tell us before we let you go, what's going to set Oath Pro Wrestle apart? What about your run as Fed head is going to make it different?
Oh, I don't want to spoil too much because I've got some plans in the works. But honestly, if you really want to find out, I reckon the only way that you'll actually truly understand it is if you join the ranks and take the pledge to join Oath.
There you go. And this is a hybrid Fed we spoke about. It is mostly angle with some role play elements. So if you're into the angle scene, this is definitely a Fed you're going to be interested in. And if you're looking to dabble in something different, I think it's a good transition.
Oh, definitely. Like I was mainly a role play guy before I found Oath, and then the hybrid has just been awesome.
The storytelling, man, it'll get you every time.
Exactly, yeah.
So, well, very good. Hey, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on and also your patience with me. Luke, it's been a lot of fun talking about Oath, and I think this has been a good introduction to the live version of the Spotlight.
Oh, mate, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you for letting me come in and talk about Oath, because honestly, this place, yeah, it's like a home for me. So I'm happy to bring it back, and I'm happy to keep it running so hopefully other people can find it and have the same experience I did.
Perfect. That's a great cap on it, too. So, hey, Luke, thanks so much, buddy. This was a blast. I appreciate it. Everybody check out Oath Pro Wrestle on Twitter. And one more time with the link, Luke.
So we got Twitter at Oath Pro Wrestle. You got the forum, which is oathprowrestling.boards.net. And then you got the Wix site, which is oathprowrestling.wixsite.com.
This is the handler of the Majestic, Crimson Lord, and you are listening to the Efed podcast.
Today on the show, we got Andy Bloxham. Andy played Zero many years ago in HEW, CWL, briefly in the CSWA and the FWO. He's a man who's been brought up quite often recently on the show, and many of the characters from his era have been on the show recently, and some of his good friends. So, Andy, how you doing, buddy? Glad to have you on the show.
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Doing good. This is almost like a deeper dive into previous interviews.
Yeah. Oh, it is. I mean, and in fact, I would say this podcast is what even got me back into the e-wrestling world.
I love it.
We'll go much further into all those pieces, but yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's happening quite often, and I'd love to see it. These guys who have been in e-wrestling forever, then they had to take a break. They hear the podcast, they catch on to it somehow, some way, Twitter or YouTube, whatever. And next thing I know, they're in the Discord, they're chatting with us and hitting me up, and it's a lot of fun.
Jamar texted me like about a month ago. He's like, "Hey, I'm doing an interview on for e-wrestling podcast," and I was like, "What?" And then he's like, "Yeah." And so when it dropped, he was like, "The interview is ready." And so I was going for a run. I was like, "All right, I'm gonna listen to you while I'm running." And so then I'm like doing like a 5K with Jamar talking to my ears about e-wrestling, and I was just like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!"
Yeah.
And so here we are now.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool that you get like the nostalgia factor with one of your buddies on the show.
Absolutely. You know, like I'm listening and I remember like half of the story, and then they're talking about it. And, you know, they remember like bits and pieces, and I'm like, oh
yeah.
I'm like trying to give them like, no, it's this person, like that's his name, you know. And they're like, and I'll text them. I was like, yo, who was that? Oh yeah, I remember it afterwards. And I'm sure I'm gonna do the same thing. During this interview as well.
That's always how it goes. Yeah, in the moment, it's always hard to remember each detail.
Yeah.
So, Andy, you got into wrestling as a kid. Who caught your eye? Who were your favorite wrestlers right off the bat?
The first wrestler. So most people are like Hulk Hogan or this and that. I just knew who they were, but I wasn't interested in them. You know, they were just these wrestlers. I mainly grew up watching WCW.
Okay.
I think because of TBS, you know, and that was just the channel. And to me, it was just a lot of wrestlers with no names. But then Too Cold Scorpio was the first person who I saw him, and you know, it's just the way he was in the ring. I was like, this guy is interesting. And so that was the first wrestler I would say I actually knew their name and know their intro and follow their matches and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Man. That's out of the box.
Yeah, and then he disappeared, and I was just like, where did he go? And then I found out like a year or two later he was in WWF.
Flash Funk.
Flash Funk, yes. But that's not Too Cold Scorpio.
No, it's completely different presentation, yeah. I caught him in ECW for the first time, so I saw another presentation of him. So
I haven't even seen those. Like, I'll have to.
He's so good.
He's
so smooth in the ring. He's a bigger guy, and he can just fly around like it's crazy, man. Yeah,
it was fascinating, you know.
So Too Cold Scorpio is your guy. What about later on as you grew into wrestling? Give us like your Mount Rushmore. Give me your top four all the time.
So I followed a lot of I got really into the NWO Invasion, you know, type stuff and all the stories. But for me, that was it was stable, but not necessarily about the individuals. I was like, I like this large story. But some of the people that stood out to me was Raven. Was especially when I was able to learn about ECW. I learned about ECW while sitting in Kmart. So, I would read Thrasher magazine, or I think it was PWI, that magazine. I would just flip through the pages. This is in the 90s. I'd be flipping through and I'd just be reading about ECW and the barbed wire matches and this and that. So I knew who RVD was. I knew who Sandman was. I knew who Raven was. 2 years before I ever saw them, I just knew of them from the pages. So then when I finally saw them, I was just I was hooked.
Yeah.
But I think Raven is definitely one of those people. So you got Too Cold Scorpio, you have Raven, Vampiro.
Wow.
But not Vampiro when he was calling what was the Robert Rodriguez wrestling promotion?
The one, I know what you're talking about.
It was set up like a theater set almost, or like a Nickelodeon set.
Lucha Underground.
Lucha Underground, yeah. So not that Vampiro. Vampiro.
WCW Vampiro.
But not even that one.
Okay.
Like, not when he was with ICP. But if you go back to, I think he was with the Misfits before that, one of the two. But then he appeared against an Armstrong brother on one episode of Nitro. He just showed up, as this character, and it was just kind of this interesting personality to him, and I was like, that guy's pretty interesting. And then he never showed up again for like 3 or 4 months. But like there was something about like that character that stood out as a spark to me. So we're going to go Vampiro with the caveat of a certain time frame of Vampiro.
This era of Vampiro.
Yeah, and then Sandman.
The Sandman.
I would go with the Sandman. There was just something to like. I love the stripped down kind of rawness of like ECW.
Yeah.
So the production values were low, and Sandman would come through the crowd, and it's just smashing beer and cigarettes and just
being with the people.
Being with the people, yeah. So just that whole aspect of everything, and I met the Sandman like 2 years ago. Like I was doing ringside photography for an indie Fed up in Pittsburgh, and normally I would have an idea of like what's going to happen on the card, like. Gilbert showed up one night, but I met him beforehand, so when he came out, I was like, oh, okay, this is the story that I'm photographing. Yeah. I did not know the Sandman was there. And so there was a tag match, and all of a sudden, like, I started hearing Enter Sandman from Metallica, and then that's the only time I ever marked out, like, as a ringside photographer. I'm like, oh, shit, Sandman's here. And so the crowd's looking around. I'm looking around too because I have to photograph him, but also because it's Sandman. And then I'm like looking around. They turn the spotlight. He's up in the back bleachers with a 12-pack of beer and like a cane. And I'm just like, I got photographer privileges. I like jump into the crowd and like photographing him. Like,
let me climb on your back. Let me see this. Yeah,
yeah, it was amazing. I was just like, I have goosebumps now even thinking about it. Just like that experience. So,
that's awesome. That's so cool.
So I would say, yeah. Too Cold Scorpio, Raven, certain Vampiro, and Sandman.
Short of Vampiro, it's a very ECW roster.
Yeah, it's actually.
But that's cool, man. I like that you went a different route. Like, I get a lot of WWF fans on here. Don't get me wrong, I'm a WWF guy, but it's cool to see people pick different guys. Like D'Lo Brown's my favorite wrestler. You're going Vampiro. You're going Too Cold Scorpio. I love that stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean. I went to WrestleMania last week, so like I'm not a WWE hater. Yeah, but it's almost like, hang on, it's the show,
Yeah.
For WWE and ECW, like it's more like you're crammed on top of each other, and it's just like that. I never saw an ECW show, but
it looks tight.
Yeah, and that just, it looks amazing, I think. Just that intimacy, like you could get hit with a chair at any moment. And so I like that. That's awesome.
That's really cool. So we got your Mount Rushmore. We got how you got into wrestling. How did you find the weird world of e-wrestling?
Let's see. How did I do this? Do you know Lords of Pain? WrestlingHeadlines.com. It's a dirt sheet.
I'm not familiar, but the name sounds familiar.
It's a wrestling rumor site, basically. I've been going to it for 20 years. I've pretty much stopped watching wrestling in many ways, but I still follow the rumors every day.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. But so I'd say 20 years ago, 98, 99, they were advertising like fantasy wrestling, from their website. And I was like, what is that? I don't even know what that is. And so I inquired and looked into it, but never actually joined it. I was just like, this is interesting. Okay. And then I don't remember the next step of what led me from that. But then I did eventually join one maybe a few months later, maybe that next week at some point.
You found a different one.
I found one that I actually didn't submit an application to, and it was a Fed called Hardcore Extreme Wrestling. So again, I'm an ECW, HCW. So I'm an ECW fan. I find something that's geared towards like hardcore wrestling, and so I'm like, all right, what is this? You know, so like I grew up writing like my whole life, whether it's like writing superhero stories or, you know, just human experience stories, it's that. And it's like, this is a creative writing thing. I was like, this is a weird like intersection between writing and wrestling. And so I joined HEW, and I think I was like, dude, you have to make up a character. And I was like, what's something kind of anti-authority or you know, just kind of like this, I don't know, like just this anti-hero maybe type character. And I was like, I'll call him Zero, you know, and I applied and I got in, and I would say that's what kicked it off. It was just this little tiny Fed that keeps popping up a lot, you know, in backstories.
Quite a bit.
But yeah.
So you
ran by Gerald.
Go ahead.
Go
ahead.
Sorry. Gerald Logan ran it, and I think it's always interesting because Gerald's. I think it's always good just to like make sure like Gerald gets the credit, because like he sort of, whether he knows or not, it's kind of instigated a lot of these paths for people. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so
it's crazy how many of the legendary characters, quote unquote, that ran through this Fed or that Fed or such and such. And, you know, a lot of the ones that we mentioned, even the ones that you're going to mention here shortly, a lot of the guys in my Discord have been in one time or another.
Talking about like FWO or CWL or CSWA?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
It's crazy how like 20 years later this weird world intersects again.
It's true. And I mean, I don't know like what the current state of e-wrestling, like, you know, I know what I've read from Discord, you know, and from like, you know, people here and there, but like I wonder if it has that same cyclical kind of nature as like pro wrestling. Yeah. So like, you know, all those Feds were in the late 90s, early 2000s, which kind of coincides with the Attitude Era.
I 100% believe that, yes, you're onto something. That E-Feds coalesce with the rise and fall of wrestling as well. Mm-hmm. As wrestling goes, E-Feds go.
Yeah.
So now, but even so, as technology goes, now what E-Fedding is becoming for a lot of the younger E-Fedders is it's CAW Feds, it's video game Feds, it's create a character online, and they sim them on 2K together. It's a lot of you weave the story, but the game happens on visually now instead of writing.
I understood half of what you just said. I heard it fine, but into my brain, I was like, a call Fed, I'm assuming that's create a wrestler.
You got it. Create a wrestler in a video game. And
2K is a video game.
2K is a WWE video game. Fire Pro is the other one that's huge. Fire Pro Wrestling. And
that's a video game?
Yeah, it is. And they make these Feds out of them. It's crazy. But hey, I'm just happy that e-Fedding still exists, whether it's through writing, whether it's through video games, no matter what. It's cool that the hobby evolves, but meanwhile,
it started as like Dice, didn't it?
There was Dice. It was like
and Mail,
Dungeons and Dragons, and all this weird stuff, and draw a card and play a move, and it was crazy. So here we are. We moved through writing, we moved through video games, and today we're all kinds of e-wrestling.
Interesting. It just has a natural like evolution. And maybe like we're talking about like how it coincides with like WWE or wrestling. It also is coinciding with like technology.
Absolutely.
You know, like whatever the technology is, because I've seen like social media Feds, like and that's a new thing to me. You know,
Twitter
like
Feds,
and
Facebook Feds.
Yeah, and so I was like, that makes sense. I remember in Chikara, the indie wrestling organization, Chikara.
Yeah.
What do they call it? They had their shows were like podcast shows, or their wrestling shows. I forget, it was like a way they presented it. I remember like in 2010, 2011, like I hadn't even thought about that. You know, like, you know, wrestling organizations are distributing this stuff through like a direct to user medium, like podcasting or something like that. And so I can see that technology, how it kind of floats over to this.
And now people are doing video feds, so even crazier, cutting promos on video as a fictional character.
Is it really them? Like
yeah.
You
so
and I
like
are talking?
It's like me on the green screen saying, "Hey, Andy, I'm coming at you this Sunday at Revolution."
Are people deep faking their videos yet?
Not yet. We're not yet at like pick-based video fed, so we'll get there.
Okay, all right. That's
the next evolution. I like that. I like where your head went there.
And so there's who's the guy? Charles Manson.
Yeah.
So he's got an old video from in jail, and there's a comedian, Chris D'Elia, I think. They pulled references of him talking on podcasts, and they put it on the Charles Manson, body, and it looks so realistic, like everything. Crazy. I was like, this is going to happen at some point in your wrestling. You create your guy, and then you do all them. It's like, like the whole dot technology.
How many bad Ryan Reynolds are coming? I don't know.
A lot, probably.
All right, back to you, Andy. Let's talk about HEW Zero. You come into Zero. Talk about the character. Like, when you first create this new character, what is the gimmick? What is he like?
I would say it was an evolution. Because I was coming from like the punk rock world.
Okay.
So I was in a punk rock band, and it was kind of like a lot of ethos about how I just kind of viewed the world and life, and so I just kind of poured all of that into a character.
Sure.
It's like this guy. Like, I like Raven and Sandman and ECW and all that, and also like punk rock. And I was like, I'm going to make a punk rock hardcore guy, and so that was the intersection there. So I would say, he started off as a punk rock hardcore guy, and not a lot of depth, I would say.
How bad were those first promos?
Okay, so this is going to go off on I'm very, very ADD at times. So they were bad. I would just say that. But I've done a reread of what I consider to like be the better, stories as well. And rereading them now, I'm like, oh, these are bad too. Like everything is like, I'm reading and I'm cringing. And I'm like, that's a grammar error. That's a spelling error. That doesn't even make sense as a story structure. What am I doing here?
Why did I go from here to here? Yeah.
Yeah, but then that was like, I was proud of that. And up until like the moment before, I was still kind of proud of it. And now I read it, it's like, oh, I hope nobody reads that again.
Yeah, I'm never going to appoint anybody there.
Yeah. But so the first ones, like, I would say empirically, they were bad. But, it's, you got to make bad stuff to then improve upon it. And then,
absolutely.
But then you can never think that was good, because then you rest right there and you're like, okay, I've reached that. You always got to think your previous stuff is shit, and then keep, breaking it apart, throwing it away. Yeah, so, so HEW, one of the things definitely like I kind of learned is that it was a role play fed. At the time, we didn't call it a role play fed. It was just a fed. Like the whole angle fed, role play fed was. I didn't learn that until like a couple years afterwards. That there's even a distinction.
Yep.
So, but the premise was we write a role play, and then our opponent writes a role play, and then we battle in promos. So like there's a standard structure to that. And I also realized that I quickly realized I did not enjoy that, because I didn't enjoy not knowing what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't plan all of this.
It was more anxiety than anticipation.
Yeah. So I'm very competitive at the same time. So like I can either be really competitive, and then it becomes not fun because the anticipation, this and that, or I can go this other way and just kind of structure a story, and go more from like a standard writing perspective, where I'm not dependent upon someone else deciding to choose my own adventure I'm going to get to partake in.
Yeah.
So I went that route probably within a couple of months.
So after a few months, you left the HEW?
No, I was there. off and on for about a year and a half, I would say. But it was just like a playground, Yeah. So a lot of like, you've interviewed Pete, you've interviewed Paul, you've interviewed Jamar.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've interviewed anybody else, from there, but these are all like people that, I was writing with, and then, with OOC, I think it was the term at the time, like just then getting to meet people and then just having like conversations and, and so it just became like this area where we just all kind of just wrote. So like Paul, like he and I started like really, cooperatively writing back and forth between his character Havoc and, my character. Jamar, we didn't really work. I don't think we worked on anything together in HW, but like that was just like just a friendship, just kind of born out of that, and it just develops over the years. But it was a great place. It was a great place where you kind of do whatever you wanted, and Gerald didn't put a lot of structure or rules on what you can or can't do, so we kind of got to do what we wanted and make our own process.
And that's great freedom as a creative writer. You get to expand your character instead of being so rigid where almost like someone else is controlling the character you're trying to write.
Right. It's I think it's a difference of mindset. Like I talked to Jamar recently. He was like, I get really competitive and I'm trying to like beat the guy and this and that. And I was like, I get it. I could not do that day to day.
Yeah.
Like, but personalities.
So you last in HEW for about a year and a half. What happens next?
I would say HEW closed. And I've been trying to figure out the actual history of the Fed. And I've talked to Gerald. I've talked to a lot of people trying to figure out all the different, I've even talked to, Brian, trying to see what all the areas are. So at some point during HW, I was in CSWA for a little bit as well. And in the context of like, I didn't know I was in a circle at the time, but according to like that circle, CSWA was kind of like the pinnacle Fed. That's the one. Some guys who were in HW were normally in CSWA, and they were doing spare stuff in HW. I was the opposite. I was there. And then, trying to get a character into there. So one thing, this is something that I learned. I didn't even think about it until I did it, but there was a side Fed called SCW that was ran by a guy named Ed. I'm totally blanking on his last name, but Ed was also in CWL. He's another one of this little group of people that's kind of migrated everywhere. But so I put Zero. He was in HEW, and then, somebody was like, oh, we should join this Fed too. And I was like, okay, I'll try to join that one. So I joined that one. So I'm like multitasking. And I lasted for about a week, maybe 2 weeks. And then I had this question, like canon becomes, fairly important. I was like, I'm telling a story here. So the canon of the character, now every step that he takes or move or federation he joins now is part of his story. And I was like, it doesn't make sense that a wrestler would be in two nationally touring organizations that are competing with each other and running weekly shows. So he can only be in one. So then I just kind of I've uncanonized the SCW, if you will, and kind of made it a point just to keep the character in one Fed or this Fed or this Fed or whatever. But and then I was in CSWA for like a cup of coffee. Like very brief. And I was there, but HW was more productive. Like, they had more shows going on, and like the frequency of stuff. Yeah. More activity. Yeah. So I ended up migrating, back to there up until, they had their conclusion show, which was in late 2000, I would say.
Okay.
And do you remember a place called EW Center? It might have been before you got into e-wrestling.
So I got into the 99, 2000. I'm trying to. So I don't. I remember Rough Cut, and I remember some of those earlier communities like that, but I don't remember EW Center.
Okay, it was EW Center was kind of like, I mean, it's probably like all these other sites, you know. It's just, I had never seen a site like that before. And so while I was in HW, I was like venturing around. I came across FWO, and I was just like, this is weird. Like, all their characters are like little cartoons. And I was like, huh, because CSWA was like very word based, you know?
Yeah.
Like, no wrestler pick based anything or pose or anything like that. And then you had FWO, was like this completely other thing. And I was like, oh, there's a lot of variety in this hobby. You know, I'm learning. And I was learning that through EW Center. EW Center, like a lot of feds, like the Asylum was kind of connected to that.
Previously mentioned on the show with Brock.
FWO, yes, Brock. I met Brock through interaction of chatting through CWL, which EW Center is what led me to CWL.
Okay.
So I was getting really involved in just kind of like the chat and just meeting people on there, and I started writing a column. I interviewed like Steve Carino from ECW and like different e-wrestlers. I was doing like interview formats when I column for them and posting. I think I was posting all that on EW Center. And one day I get an email from a guy named Ed Wilson, who I had no idea who he was, you know. It was like, hey, I'm starting a Fed. Would you be interested in joining? And I was like, no, I don't want to join. You know, and then I don't want to mess up the story itself, but basically, like, I followed back. I was like, you know, he's like, you know, Travis Bevan from FWO is involved, you know, in a way, and you know, it's very story based, and you know, I've seen some of your writing. Would you like to do it? And I was like, okay, let's go for it. And so he's like, but it's going to be in 3 months. And so there's a big gap where like HW is closed or was about to close. And then there was like this whole time. So I was like, okay, cool. And I think Paul or Jamar and I, we've tried to figure out like what was the series of steps that happened, you know, from there. And like, I know I asked Ed, I was like, hey, I've got a few other people if you'd be interested, you know, in joining. And so then therein comes like Paul and Jamar. Mm-hmm. And then from that, and then like, you know, Pete came in through there and Ed came in through there, and I might be forgetting other people, you know, but then that's where like these two streams are starting to come together. So then they're pulling like FWO people, some of the people who have been on this podcast, or they will be on this podcast. And then you're bringing CSWA people. And then all of a sudden now we got this interesting juncture. Because if you ask me, like, who are like the godfathers, you know, of like e-wrestling, like
Mount Rushmore of e-wrestling.
Well, it would be two people. It would be Chad Merritt over in CSWA, and it would be Travis Bevan over in FWO. And I feel like they both pioneered, you know, unique takes on e-wrestling, but very different. And then I feel like that kind of converged when CWL happened, you know, because you're pulling in these people and then creating this new thing. And so,
fun fact about Chad, I messaged him on Facebook about 6 months ago, and he never responded. Then he heard the podcast, and suddenly he's talking to me all the time. Shout out to Chad. He's a great guy, and he's giving me some free promotion on fwrestling.com. So check out fwrestling.com for all your e-wrestling needs.
And then also just pester Chad, because he's fun to talk to.
He is, and he's starting an F-Wrestling Discord, so get involved and feel free to get in there and check what's out there, and maybe you can get your Fed shield on his stuff too. I don't know that. I'm just making that up, so talk to Chad. Just trying to promote his shit. fwrestling.com.
You remember Ben Halcomb?
I do. I've met Ben.
You met Ben.
I was in UTA.
So I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it was just Fed from 2014 to like 2016, 17.
Did he run F Wrestling at one point, or
I don't know that. I have no idea.
Or so I met him in Seattle. I was up there doing a photo shoot, and this was like 2013, 2014, and he's sitting at work, just like in his interview. Like, he's at work. I'm like, Ben, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm making some posers for my Efed. And I was like, it was kind of like, I was like, oh, those are still around? Interesting. It was like, they kind of, I feel like that's been like a question that, people who are coming back to the hobby, they're like, oh, it's still around.
That's how I got back into it. I took a long hiatus and I said, I wonder if that's still a thing. Efeds,
Yeah. And then, there it is.
Yep. So you mentioned meeting Ben. At this point, you've been through HEW. You've been through what, CSWA now?
CSWA was quick. 99. And then 2000 was HEW. And then 2001, January 1st was CWO. And CWO it's an interesting note in the history of e-wrestling, just because it was gone almost as quick as it was there. It lasted for about 5 months, and that's only because the guy who founded it, Ed Wilson, died.
Yep.
And so it was like the sudden. It was like everything just halts.
Stops.
Yeah. But while it was around, it was a whole new take on like the hobby of e-wrestling. I really appreciated like the writing focus. It was based in chapters, like a book, and it was really using like the nomenclature of prose and creative writing and everything like that. So it was like that. So when people, they say, they have a character that they write, and they're like, I introduce themselves as their character, or they say, I was this person over here, this and that. I was like, no, you weren't. Like, you were still you.
You're still Henry.
You're a writer. You're still Henry, and you write a character. Stephen King is not the woman who kidnapped the guy and put him in the bed.
Stephen King is not Carrie. He's not,
Right. Like if anything, Carrie is Stephen King. But it's the opposite.
Yeah.
But so I enjoyed in CWO just the way it was very story focused. And so you could say it's a role play fed or an angle fed or this and that. It's more of a story fed. And so that was a huge motivator for me. It was really good. Like, he wasn't telling, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like everyone kind of took their own initiative to craft, literally whatever story they wanted to make. And so there was I kind of gravitate towards those places that give you like tons of freedom. And then I just kind of get to make my way, in something like that. And so it was just a really like special place, and maybe something has existed since then that is like it. I've been pretty removed, over the years since then. But when it came out, I would say it was definitely unique. Just the ethos of it was something very special.
It's so cool when you find something that stands out, something that's different, and you can really throw yourself into it and just really get into it.
Mm-hmm. It was so CSWA had just like massive walls of text, when you read stuff, and it's great text, but it's a lot of text, to read. FWO was not so heavy, and I don't want to disparage, and I'm not disparaging it, but it was more of like a visual, type thing, and CWO was kind of like, it was just a great junction point, between those. I don't know. That was what it was.
And so, unfortunately, you lose one of your friends and your Fed head.
Yes.
When that Fed closes or just stops. And I believe I checked out your website. I go ahead and give the link for
the zerosite.com, or you can go to lentdouglas.com and it goes to the same thing.
The zerosite.com. Check it out. It's got a tribute to your former Fed head.
It does. That website's almost turned into a time capsule.
Yeah.
So, I got put new things on it, over the years, but there's a lot of stuff that like when things happen, I just kind of left it in place.
Yeah.
So there's a tribute to Ed, on there as well.
And that's very nice. Obviously, we make a lot of very close friends in this hobby, and sometimes life goes a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to do things like it's nice to keep people in your thoughts and memoriam, and I'm glad we can do the podcast and talk about people and almost bring them back into the fold of e-fedding.
Mm-hmm.
So
Let's talk about what happens next in your Efed career, quote unquote.
So the question after that ended is just like, some people went back to this Fed or they went back to that Fed, or like, where do we, go? And I was like, well, that was what I was looking for, like in a Fed, So I had this idea of creating an Efed with no wrestling, which I think is just called writing.
Yeah. A writing group. Yeah.
A writing group. Yeah. And I made a website. And it was just called North Shore, and it was based on a fictional town in Maryland. And I had this idea of like a 10-room apartment building, like a motel, exterior door facing type of motel. So then you got 10 rooms right there. And so you have 10 writers, and everyone's in charge of one room. And that room can have family, it can have a single person, you can have whatever, but it's in a town that's kind of like been developed as, I don't know what the term is, but like somebody who creates their own town. And so that was like the idea that I had running, but and Jamar still bugs me about this. He's, it's kind of like North Shore, huh? And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like North Shore. It never ran. So it stayed as like an idea. And then I ended up joining FWO in 2002, briefly, because I'm trying to remember why it was so brief. And I think what happened was I was doing a lot of creative writing in college and also joining FWO, and I was doing a lot of writing. And I think the college writing and like the type of writing I was doing there took precedence. Yeah. And it was a completely different style of writing too. So Jamar and I worked some stuff very briefly together, and then I was out.
Yep.
And then that was it for almost a decade of anything.
So you take a decade off, real life hits. We got to go out, do college, find jobs, do all that fun stuff. Then what happens? You say a decade.
A decade. And I wouldn't even say I took a break. I would just say
you quit.
I quit.
Yeah.
It's 2012, and I'm sitting in a museum in Rochester, New York, waiting to go to the airport to fly. I was in Rochester, and then I get a text from, these names pop up a lot, Paul and Jamar. Like it's kind of like this little triangle, of a little trio, and they're like, hey, we're joining Ultra Title, which was on F Wrestling.
Yep. And
they're like, do you want to join? And they said, Kent's going to be in it. Kent's another guy that I left out. He was another HEW to CWO guy. He wrote a character called Blade. Kent. So they texted me and they said, do you want to join in? And I was just like, and I knew what had coming up. I was about to teach in Ireland. At this point I was a college professor, teaching photography. And I was just like, sure, why not? I guess we'll do this. And then I got on a plane. I was like, ooh, what am I doing? Okay, I guess we're back in that world. So I just jumped in, and and I learned very quickly then that Chad's. I already saw he has a question about like the whole Ultra Title thing that happened as well. So I'll get to the meat of the story then. But basically, it was like a role play battle, back and forth. And I've never changed my writing style based upon what the parameters are of the Fed. I just write how I write, And if it works for that Fed, then fine. And if it doesn't, then I'll go away, or something like that. It was an interesting experience, but that was the last experience I've had, in e-wrestling since then. Was
what year was that?
2012. For about maybe a month and a half, of this big e-wrestling tournament.
So basically 1990, 1998 to
90, I think it's 90. The safest is to say 99, probably January 99 to 2002. So about 2.5-3 years.
Yep.
And then a couple of months in 2012. And that's it.
And then now you're getting the itch again, I'm sure.
It's the itch, and there's memory lane, you feel a little bit like Uncle Rico, kind of doing everything.
Bet you I can throw a football over those mountains.
Bet you I could win a world title tomorrow.
Right, So so there's a little bit of that component, and it's interesting seeing a lot of names popping back up, from everybody, and it's just it's an interesting hobby, and I think because if it was just wrestling based, like I would be so far gone, never coming back. But I think it's the writing component that keeps
it's got to be
coming back.
Like you, I haven't been a wrestling fan of current stuff in many, many years, but here I am writing wrestling.
I would say in the past, when I was a professor, I used to every Monday, me and two other professors would meet up on Monday nights and watch Raw, and that was the first time I'd watched wrestling in probably 4 years. And this was early 2012 to 14, I'd say, and I have pretty much stopped watching wrestling since then, except when I was photographing indie wrestling. And then that was the wrestling I was watching for about a year. And then I see like those guys that go off to, NXT and they've went off to AEW. And so like, I keep track of like what they're doing through like their Instagram feed, but I don't have a TV. I don't, TNT, it's kind of hard. I'll watch some clips maybe on YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, there you have it. That kind of wraps up your career in e-fedding.
Yeah, I would say I didn't get into anything of what I actually did, but those are the feds. If you've talked with Paul, I would say majority of like the writing, he and I had a Zero Havoc feud that went on for like a year or two, just this constantly evolving, thing. And so, and I think without Paul, I probably wouldn't, I would be so far gone from e-wrestling too, because in a way, like him and his writing is what, like that was the connection point for me. It's like me and this guy are crafting a story over time.
Yeah.
From HW into CWL. And so, that's an important component too.
It's great that e-wrestling, you can build those stories with strangers, you could meet friends, you can do so many cool things through e-wrestling.
It's true. If you so you can meet people, you can do so many things. I've met like a lot of people from e-wrestling, just like I've driven like the continent, and so I'll be in somebody's town and I'll be like, hey, you want to grab dinner? We're going to do a photo shoot together. I've crashed over people's places, like I even thought about doing a photo project, just traveling around and meeting people from e-wrestling and doing a contrast of the character they write versus who they are. And I think that would be like an interesting
That'd be a cool
contrast.
Story.
Yeah. And so I've sort of done it just from doing portraits of people, a few people here and there. But, and then it gets all the way down to like I've known Jamar like in person for like 10 years, and so like I lived in DC, he lives around DC. Well, actually neither one of us live in DC. It's Virginia, Maryland. But, so like, I mean, he and I have been hanging out for like a super long time, to the point where like we never even talked about e-wrestling. We're talking about like anything else,
life,
like
family, everything.
Life.
Yeah.
And so I would say in the past month is the most we've talked about e-wrestling in the entire time I've known him, just as like a living, breathing human, so
just the nostalgia and the, bringing back memories.
Right.
All right, Andy, we're going to hit the Twitter questions and the Discord questions. On Twitter, we just got some comments. You ready for at Dead Space Devil? Plus, he was in the EWI, the NTHWA, and their merged GXW while feuding. No?
It's not me.
It's not him. Different Zero guy.
There is a Wikipedia for e-wrestling. It's I don't know what the exact address is, but there's a Zero character on there that and I think I made this correction to it. I was like, this does not reference the Zero of CWL, WO,
HEW, yeah.
Yeah. So So I'm not sure who that guy is.
So Alex, maybe I'll interview the other Zero someday, but not this time. Sorry, buddy. Meanwhile, from LVCK1, oh damn, this will be fire, legendary writer.
Quote. I've reread that stuff. It's not
legendary.
Before we get to more, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Before we go further. So you are starting a new Fed.
I am.
Classic-wrestling.com. That's a plug for you.
Thank you.
So we chatted briefly on Discord about philosophy.
Yes.
And I was like, I want to save that, for like the chat. So your Fed is based on the idea that everything's in kayfabe. It's real. And they live. I would assume they keep kayfabe when they go to Waffle House.
Exactly. So your character is over the top, but Hacksaw Jim Duggan is Hacksaw Jim Duggan at Walmart.
Yeah, I mean that's where he buys his wood.
Exactly. 2x4s. You need them at Lowe's. You need them at Home Depot. I get it.
Right. And so, is that the premise that you're approaching that Fed as like a concept, or is that more your preference of how you like e-wrestling to be?
That's my preference of how I like my wrestling to be, and that's why I think wrestling has gotten away from that over the years, and it's more put your elbow in your buddy's rib. It's all a joke, it's all fake kind of thing, and I hate that. I love realism in my wrestling. I love people believing in the characters, believing it's real and fake, and believing in even the dramatic Hulk Hogan. Eat your vitamins and say your prayers, brother.
So yes. So it's
still real to me. Damn it.
I was thinking about that guy. Yeah. But so it's like you like your wrestling to be like a movie, like
yes. or a sport, one of the two.
Or a sport, yeah. As opposed to. So you ever done like dinner theater?
Sure, absolutely.
And so it's. So I'm in the opposite direction. I would say first off, I'm gonna preface that, but I love that where that conversation is, and to get to those two places. So dinner theater, like you're watching theater, and you accept theater by what it is, even though like there's a person who's wearing like an all black outfit and they're walking out moving sets.
Yeah.
This person's on a stage, they're talking this way instead to the person. So there's these things that are obviously a lie, but they're done in a context where we buy into it.
Sure.
Wrestling is like that. It's like I talk about wrestling when I talk about photography. It's like I prefer photography that's more WWE than your UFC. Mm-hmm. But when you have dinner theater, all of a sudden the actor comes off the stage and they come next to your table, and I'm like, oh, you're a real person. Okay, like you need to be on that stage because you're a character, but now like you're a person who has you've got dirt on your shoes, or something. There's
or I
something
can see I can see a dimple or something,
or like whatever, like there's some kind of flaw, or there's a human
element,
yes, and so that takes you out. You can't buy in because they're not selling it effectively.
That's me in real life.
Yeah. So you want, or a performance art maybe is another example, or anything where it's like this weird fourth wall breaking.
That's what I can't do. I can't do it.
It destroys the illusion.
Yeah.
And so I would agree with you on that. Like that strong illusion makes the story of what the wrestling is super effective. As opposed to like The Wrestler, like the movie The Wrestler, it makes no pretense that wrestling is real. It's behind, and then there's a real person. There's a real person who, whatever it is, they're trying to get by and then wrestle, and then you go behind the curtain and
you see their daughter and everything else.
You see their daughter. You see like the heel, and like they're going over the spots, and it's pulling the curtain back like the Wizard of Oz. I'm fascinated by that stuff.
That's exactly what wrestling's become. E-wrestling's become, and it's perfect for what you're looking for.
Well, but I I would say not quite. So there is that. There's the real people, and like the real life, and I enjoy, like the little peek about who that person is. But a lot of e-wrestling feels like it still straddles this dinner theater area. And this was what I always struggled with, with it, is because when you go out into the ring and then you're having storylines or this and that, it always becomes tricky because you got to sell the storyline as like a real thing, but then the character goes backstage and they're obviously a character. And then especially if you're writing like a real person thing, how do you toe that line between this is real, but also this is real, but also this is fake?
Yeah.
And so
that's exactly what it is. When Braun Strowman is decimating people on TV and then he goes on Instagram like, ooh, I'm looking for a hot woman to make my day. And it's just completely different. It's so far removed that it's just, I can't do it.
Yes. And it introduces like these weird gray elements.
Yeah.
And so I totally get, what you're saying. And I think that's a full buy-in, and I think that makes perfect sense, or like the wrestler, the person who plays the character of a wrestler, which I would say that's been my writing style forever, with all of this.
And that's why you went the route you did after e-wrestling, where you tried to create this other world without wrestling. Yes. And it was just storytelling of real people and real situations.
Yeah. It was wrestling with no wrestling. But I will, when things converge, they don't do it delicately. There's a lot of mismatch and it's confusing. And it's a very tight, rope to walk right there. And that's the hardest part, I would say, of e-wrestling is helping that make sense. Protecting kayfabe, but also exposing kayfabe. And so it's like it's AC/DC, at the same time.
Unreal, man. It's so weird. And there's so many different wrestling fans who are in so many different things, whether it's, Japanese wrestling, American wrestling, AEW, WWE only, TNA, the Outliers, the indie guys. It's insane. I love that wrestling is having a resurgence in 2020, 2019, 2021. And I hope it maintains for quite some time because it's been great as a fan. Not that I'm getting back into wrestling, but I'm seeing e-wrestling come back even stronger. I'm seeing merchandise. I'm seeing indie shows pop up all over the area, pre-pandemic.
But it's I was in 2019, 2020 was like one of the most profitable, like as a wrestler, you had so many opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it was everywhere. But I know wrestlers who are heels in the wrestling ring, but I'm friends with them on Instagram, and so I believe nothing that you do in the ring. I can't buy into it at all because I've seen you freak out about Fruit Loops at a hotel.
It's the old actor acting adage.
Yes.
Are they the character or are they the person?
It's like method actors. It's that whole thing. I get what you're saying. I like a clean break. But I never did that. At the same
and I don't
time.
fault you for that, but. Not my thing.
Right? No, I get you. But I think it's an interesting philosophy of e-wrestling that I don't know how much it gets discussed. People like role play fed or angle fed this, and I was like, but how is the story that you're making?
There are what they call hybrid feds.
Oh, okay.
We'll save comments.
Okay.
All right. Let's hit the Discord questions. Andy, we got Meg up first at Stop Drop. Where do you see e-wrestling in a few years? And this is interesting from someone who hasn't been in e-wrestling for a few years.
Yeah.
Well, let's start here. Did you think it would still be the same way now that it was 10 years ago?
I would presume there would be a natural evolution.
Yeah.
There's poser characters on F Wrestling, CSWA's home, that was been the most profound thing for me. I was like, there's poser characters over here now. So once that happens, like, all right, this is pretty normalized across the board.
Yeah.
I'm reading the questions off, going back and looking at them as well as I'm talking. I have no idea where I would see e-wrestling in a few years. I would say the deep fake, video style
awesome.
stuff. like I mean, I think it's going to have an ebb and flow with technology.
Yeah.
And so as technology changes, more opportunity, perhaps. I mean, I think one thing, e-wrestling is still very browser based.
Yeah.
You have to sit down at a computer, and physically like typing, and I don't know many e-wrestling things that are like app based. That's a very consumer approach to it.
Brian, get on the app.
Well, I think something like that, because like e-wrestling, like I would presume it's still like your audience is still the people who are participating. Like, there have been some feds here and there where like there's a huge viewing audience. They're just quote unquote fans of it. But for the most part, it's a pretty
It's
insular.
your group. Yeah.
Yeah, So I don't know. I feel like maybe when apps go further, then all of a sudden that introduces you to like the normal people audience or wrestling audience, or maybe something there.
I guess e-wrestling is imagining yourself as a character wrestling. What about virtual reality video games? Is that e-wrestling, or is that something removed because now you're not a part of the community?
I would say that's a video game.
Yeah.
Because you can already do that.
Yeah.
Like I've got on the Zero site, I've got how to design Zero in one of the old video games.
Well, let me swing this past you then. If that's just a video game, then what about these COF-Eds where they're just playing 2K online and it's my wrestler versus your wrestler, and we're going to weave stories and promos in before we actually wrestle each other online? Is that an Efed?
Well, I just learned what
because it's competitive.
I just learned what a call fed was about 45 seconds ago.
So you should definitely judge them.
Yes, I have a very educated stance on it. Is that a hybrid fed, or is that something different?
That's completely. So like, there's a role play fed, there's an angle fed. Those are considered writing feds, and then there's COF-Eds over here. And in COF-Eds, they've got competitive feds where you actually play a guy online. Then they got like sim feds where they just simulate two wrestlers. Then they got highlight feds. It's madness, man. It's madness. My boy Jason tells us all the time all about these.
Interesting. Well, I don't know. That still sounds like a video game, but I mean, you could also say that e-wrestling is just writing,
Yep.
And so
that's it. It could just be a creative writing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how when I told people about it, like, I was like, oh, I do this online writing, and it took me a few years before I was like, yeah, it's about wrestling.
Yeah.
But initially it was just like,
oh, I hit it from so many girlfriends, so many people.
Yeah. Well, in the very beginning, like I had a band website, and so like I remember I posted the link to HEW on my band's website. I was like, oh, I'm totally involved in this thing. You guys check it out. And it lasted for about 2 weeks. And I was like, I'm going to keep that separate. So that didn't stay on there very long.
Obviously, these days, my wife was well aware, as the podcast and everything else.
I was going through old boxes of writing and notebooks and this and that, and I found an old notebook full of Zero notes and sketches and just all of like this old stuff. And I was so intrigued by it because like there's like the original sketches that are on my website. So here they are in the paper form and the tactile and like almost all the role plays were like written out in notebooks, and then transcribed on the computer. So like all that stuff exists. So it was interesting. Yeah, there's something about the writing process. It's different typing. Chuck Palahniuk talked about this. Like he writes mainly on let's see, does he write on planes? He writes on planes, but I think he writes normally with pen and paper. And he was on Joe Rogan talking about this. And he was like, I write with a pen and paper. when I type it, I'm just being a typist, or a stenographer or something, whatever the term is.
Data entry, yeah.
Yeah, he's just transcoding, this into that format, but he writes with a pen and paper. And so I was like, that's exactly, kind of that's how I did
style.
it. Yeah. But all that to say, I posted that on Instagram, that notebook. So like, I just leaned in and was like, all right, I'm embracing this. So
that's where wrestling will be in 3 years.
Yeah, right there.
All right, up next, we've got MDG. It's Warren. Check out Modern Day Gladiators at drivethrurpg.com. So who is your favorite Defiance Wrestling character?
The one Paul writes.
Paul doesn't write there.
Doesn't he do a radio?
Just pick me.
Oh, obviously you.
Obviously me. Thanks.
Mikey, yeah.
There he is. Mikey Unlikely. Check
Mikey Unlikely is that's my favorite one.
DefianceWrestling.com.
For years. So what's funny? Like 30 minutes ago, I'm talking about people who refer to themselves as their wrestling characters.
I know, and I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, that's me all day.
Yeah, I was like, your last name is not Unlikely. I'm gonna go ahead and guess.
That's a very unlikely last name.
Yes. So anyway, yeah. We're gonna go with Mikey Unlikely for that.
I play a character on the radio too, maybe. Who are you most excited about running an angle with? Basically, Warren wants you to join DefianceWrestling.com.
Oh, okay.
He's pitching, hypothetically.
Well, I know Mikey Unlikely is a character there.
As well as
by
Warren.
Default. Okay. Is it Deacon? Or
it's Deacon, yes.
It's Deacon there? Well, I guess the answer is Deacon, but that's unlikely.
Maybe a triple threat. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. There's zero chance of that.
I see what you did there.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, my main memory of you is Travis Bevan talking about how great of a writer you are, and Paul, hi Paul, but just in his Efed podcast.com interview.
There's no question there.
No question. Statement. Shout out to you. Apparently Travis Bevan says you're a great writer.
Travis Bevan, if you can get him on the show, there's a few people. Travis is one, Joe Logan's another one.
You guys gotta hook me up. It's all word of mouth. That's how we got Paul. We got Paul because he listened to the Atomic Dropcast. He was the only listener we had on Atomic Dropcast. And so we referenced
Is that why his name is Hi Paul?
That's it, because on the show we would say hi Paul because we knew he was the only guy listening. So that's the backstory to that. But yeah, so that's why there's very few, but nonetheless. We need to get those people, but it only happens by word of mouth. People requested Jamar. I didn't know Jamar. I never worked with Jamar. People requested Jamar, and I reached out to him.
Okay. I'll send Travis a message.
There you go.
And see if he'd be interested. He's pretty disconnected from it at this point, but yeah.
So are most of my guests at this point.
That's true.
You said 2012. Come on, man. Up next is Shadow Pope. It's Pete from Chad Merritt because this is later. He's already got it on. He finally made it to the Discord, but we'll go ahead and read it now. From Chad Merritt because he's far too old to know how this newfangled wizardry works. Andy, were you surprised at the response to your RP style and Ultra title, or was it just par for the course?
Okay, so I'll go back to Ultra title now. I guess surprised. I'll summarize what kind of went on. So it's a tournament where you're blocked up with somebody, and then you have to have a role play battle back and forth, and whoever wins, it's a standard role play Fed type format.
Yep.
And I just go stumbling in, and I'm like, okay, who's the person I'm up against? Okay, cool. Never going to mention that character.
Tell my story.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep the story because at that point, it's been 10 years since Zero has been anywhere. And so now I've got to update in my mind, where is he living at now? And there was a story that I had started writing that I had never finished. So I knew that story existed and now had to be finished while I was doing this. So I had to update like, a 10-year summary. And so like Zero's got he's got a scar down the middle of his chest now. And like, why is that there? And like, I have an idea, but that never came to fruition to be discussed in the thing. But, so it was the role play type stuff that it would get me kicked out of classic-wrestling.com.
Yes.
And so, but the last experience I had was CWO and FWO, and it's all very story based. And so I just keep that mindset to there. And I guess some people did not, it was drama. And drama in the sense of like, this is e-wrestling, so it's just close to the computer, type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, some people were, they didn't like that I wasn't addressing the character and I should change the format or change. And like, I was giving them nothing to work with. And I was like, fair point, but I'm not going to, I don't want to write that way. So like, kick me out if that's where you are, but if I'm telling a story, I'm going to keep going back to the story and I'll see how long it lasts up until then. But there were some people, and I don't remember who they are, like who the people were, but they were very, like, a few outspoken people about it. And it's the same thing. I'm just like, okay, closing the monitor. Like I did the whole thing, in airplanes, on trains and buses and, ferries and hotel rooms. Like, so the whole thing was like written while in travel, because I was like teaching and flying and traveling and like speaking and doing stuff like that. So there's this drama happening. I'm like, yo, I've got to go get on a plane now. So like,
I
you
can't
can have that
you right now.
Yeah. I'm just going to write this story and then I'm just going to post it and then, walk away, type thing. So, it was a little surprising. Like I wasn't expecting that, but it wasn't like the end of the world, and I kept up with it up until, ironically I was in the car on a road trip and, the whole thing, like, I got a text that, the results posted. I stopped, pulled into a parking lot, scanned through just to see what the initial quick results were. And I read that Zero lost. I was like, cool, closed my phone, got back in the car. And that was the last e-wrestling thing. Moment. Yeah.
Just like, okay, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah. I was like, I got to go to Maine now. So
real life moves on.
Yeah.
None of that stuff matters. Okay. Keep that in mind, people. None of that stuff matters.
No.
Up next is Jason Reeves at Stalker. Favorite gimmick match you helped write or participated in with Zero?
I have no idea.
No.
Because like the character kind of existed in like this premise where it was just hardcore wrestling.
So everything was like a gimmick match.
Everything was, and you have like these black holes or these memory gaps, or like the things you're most passionate about, the things you're the least passionate about, probably are the things you remember the least. And so trying to remember like the wrestling style or this and that, like that was the part that was the least interesting to me.
Yeah.
So you like how the character
won.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wrote most of the matches, as well, but like the wrestling component was the vehicle to get the story to the next parts, and so like
interested in moving on to the story than the actual wrestling.
Yeah. But at the same time, you're trying to craft, a storytelling as a wrestling component, but I don't know. It was just kind of like, these are like the means to the end to get to this next thing, but yeah. So I, gimmick match. I don't know. Zero, he had a match against Kid Cool in CWL. For any people who remember FWO, it was like a complete jobber, and Kid Cool won. And I was like, I thought that was kind of fun. Just, because a lot of people take it very seriously. They want their character to win, this and that. And I was like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
It shouldn't matter. And I was like, look, here's the thing. Like, this is this throwaway character from a throwaway character that's...
How many wrestlers on TV have never lost a match?
The most boring one, Goldberg.
Yeah, Goldberg.
But I mean, and then, okay, this is writing, like you have a hero's journey. You have something has to happen negatively for your character, so then they can face adversity and then pull back up. This is like 101 storytelling, so your character has to lose. Something has to happen negative so you can show that they become a better person and then pull out of it, afterward.
And it can't be that you almost lost and then now you've started dominating again.
Right. And then it doesn't matter. Then you get into like the new Star Wars movies and stuff like that, where it's just kind of like it's just middle gray all the way through. So yeah.
Also from Jason, I have a foggy memory, but I seem to recall you and I attempting a Stalker Zero cross feud from HEW SCW. Is that something we did?
Maybe. But that kind of ties into the SCW. Like I was in it, but then I was like, this doesn't make sense logistically, or fiscally or contractually.
So what you're saying is Justin drove you back to HEW.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't remember much of anything from SCW.
There you go. Up next is Chad. He's just recapping the question you've already answered, so we're going to skip past that. Thanks, Chad, for asking a question.
Hi, Chad.
And asking it in main chat, and so Pete could copy and paste. Up next is John Thompson at TW Combat on Twitter. What do you consider your most successful moment during your e-fetting career?
I mean, there's things that, like one does that they're proud of that might not be successful at all, but you're proud of it. And there's some things that you do and you don't care about it. And then everybody remembers it or this and that. You almost kind of wish they didn't because you're like, I don't care about
That's not the most important part to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul and I don't know if this is the most successful, but this is one of the things that I take pride in, So Paul, he had his character Havoc, and I had my character Zero, and they'd had this long feud through HEW, and we were both now in CWL. I was doing like a month and a half build up before the first in-ring appearance for the character. I was doing all
vignettes,
backlog. Yeah, just long form stories. And so then it was coming time for Zero to actually show up, And so I was like, Paul, what if we write the same story, but we write it from each of our characters' perspectives in the context of they come across each other in an airplane. And so it was, I don't remember exact details of how we did it, but I think we would do a couple lines of dialogue and I'd send it an email and he would, fill in the gaps, what it would be, and I would fill in the gaps. And then we would have the exact same, we had the story structure and we had the dialogue had to be the same, for both characters. And then we wrote our own specific stories around those things. But we had to hit the same points, but two character perspectives. And then we were going to post them at the same time.
Interesting.
And so that, I distinctively remember that. I was like really proud of that because of like all the
layers and the complexity of the story that you guys were crafting, which you were just proud of the effort and the actual background that went into it.
Yes, and that's kind of like it's the first time these two characters have seen each other after a long like personal feud / professional, and then now they're just like two people on an airplane. And how does that play out? And like there's no kayfabe, and yeah. So I would say maybe that
crafting your most intricate stories.
Yes, like how difficult can we make this?
Yeah, that's awesome.
How
it's not a world championship; it's the best story you can tell.
Right, and it's a story that like nothing happens. It's the duration of a flight, and that's it. You can't fight in a plane; you just can talk. And so I guess you can fight, but it's frowned upon.
What about your most disappointing moment of your EFED career? This moment right here on the EFED podcast. No.
Yeah, this is when I knew. All right.
Total nerd.
We can only get better. Yeah, no. I told somebody, I was like, I'm doing a podcast about writing about a fictional wrestling character. And I was like, is this cool or is this
Ridiculous.
Is this like ridiculous? Yeah. But I'm glad it finally.
I ask my wife that question each and every week.
I've done interviews for photography.
Yes.
You know, like that's what I do professionally. But the photography is very, very story based. You know, so it's still about story. So it's nice to be able to do like an interview or a discussion that actually is about what we think of as stories.
Yeah.
You know.
The OOC.
But say it again.
The OOC side of things.
The OOC, yes, yeah. When you have flame wars, you know, and things like that.
Fed wars.
I mean, it's not necessarily my Efed career, but I mean, like the closing of CWO and like how it happened, the ramifications. Yeah. I mean, I would say that, you know, but I don't want to peg that to like
being disappointing because it's more of a sad time.
Yeah, that's an overall just bad thing. Yeah, you know. But like, then I can't be like, well, my character lost once.
I can easily see it. That. Yeah, I can easily see it being like the low part where you were down and out.
Yeah, you know. So like that's and that affected a lot of people. You know, so way beyond just e-wrestling.
Up next from John, would you smash with Marsha Brady? Age progressed to your current age.
Of course.
Who wouldn't? Marsha.
Like, why is that a question?
All right, moving on from
the question
John.
Should be, why would you not? You know, and then, you know.
Shout out to John. He always drops most successful, most disappointing, and then a random off-the-wall question. So
awesome.
Great listener. Thanks, John. Up next, hashtag is your mom hot? OG.
Beautiful.
It's ridiculous.
Yes.
Question
Gorgeous.
1, is your mom hot?
Gorgeous, yes.
Gorgeous. You were already ready for that one.
Yeah. I actually told Brian, I was like, the questions I needed to know is what got me into wrestling, my Mount Rushmore, is my mom hot?
Yep, that's it.
those are the questions to be ready for.
Yeah, so Rick drops it on everybody.
I've heard it.
Yeah.
In some of the interviews. So
is she single?
She is not. She is happily married to my father.
Sorry, Rick, you're out on this one.
Yeah.
Suspend reality for a minute. Zero versus Macho Man. Who goes over and how?
Macho Man goes over.
With the elbow drop.
With the elbow drop.
Gotta be.
Yeah.
You gotta take the finish, brother. If you had to pick between a role-play Fed and an angle Fed, why would your answer be whichever one Ridiculous is in?
Because that's the one that Ridiculous is in.
Shout-outs to Ridiculous. No, but RP or angle, what's your preference?
I kind of got into it earlier.
You're very competitive, but the story trumps the...
Yeah, whatever one that just kind of exists and just kind of lets me run around. I don't even have to, you know, I don't even have to have a character with a wrestling match on the card. Just as long as you have a board that I can post stories to.
Yeah,
like that's the thing.
I'll see if I won, but let me flesh out my character some more.
Yeah, it's like, well, there's a month. Gabby's injured. Oh my God, so much story, and then go from there.
Oh fuck, I got a match again.
Okay. Get back in kayfabe mode.
All right, last from Rick. You're trapped on a desert island, but managed to Gilligan together a coconut-powered TV that allows you to choose one pay-per-view event from any point in history on repeat. Which pay-per-view event and why? I like that question.
Was there any pay-per-view events that went over the logistics of boat building? Like educational things? Because I want to get off the island.
I'm sure you can pay for those videos on like a college website. So let's call it, those are pay-per-views.
That was the other one. It would like just be a porn, that you just watch over and over.
So it wouldn't even be wrestling.
Yeah, I assume he's talking about wrestling though.
So you gotta
okay, here it is. it's not ECW,
Okay.
even though but like if I want to introduce somebody to pro wrestling,
Yep.
you know, like they've never seen wrestling before or whatever, I would show them Hulk Hogan versus The Rock from WrestleMania. Whenever
18.
Yes, where they do the complete, you know, babyface heel
turn
switch.
They both turn.
And they're just like they're just standing in the ring and the crowd's going crazy and they won't wrestle.
They didn't have a chance whether they wanted to turn or not. That crowd was not going to boo Hogan at all.
That, you know, like that was fascinating. Like
I made my wife watch it recently because it's a spectacle. It makes you spine tingle, and even she said it was great.
Can you see those hairs?
Yeah, just talking about it.
Just talking about it. like my nipples are hard. It's just like,
check out the video at patreon.com/Efed podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a great pay-per-view, especially because you got the gimmick battle, or maybe that's the year before. But I
have no idea. I have no idea what else is on the show.
But
I just know that
you got The Rock and Hulk Hogan. You got Steve Austin and Scott Steiner. Scott Hall. I'm sorry, Scott Hall versus Steve Austin. And that's all that I can remember from that show.
Wow, that's what I would show people though, or like I would just watch that over.
Incredible match. If you haven't seen that, check it out. The Rock versus Hulk Hogan.
Was it an incredible match?
I mean, physically, no, but with the atmosphere and the fans were so into it. Every time someone turned around and looked at somebody, the crowd would cheer or boo. It was so good. Like, it was just, it was classic wrestling.
Yeah.
That's why you liked it, Andy. Come on now.
That's it. I could just, you know, it was no dinner theater there. Like, I was just a fan, you know, just watching. So I would say maybe that.
All right. Thanks, Rick, for your questions. Appreciate that. Up next, it's Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul. Do you still play the drums?
You never stop being a drummer. You just don't have a drum set.
You just drum on everything else.
Yeah. If I sat down and a set of drums, I could play my old band songs. I could play Tool, whatever, you know, 311, punk rock, all that stuff.
Have you kept up with the other members of Fast to Nowhere?
Fast to Nowhere was the name of the band that I was in.
Paul said he's still got the CD, he thinks.
So that CD was like one of like 5. Like that was the first CD that we recorded. Edition. It's so limited. Like every one of those CD inserts were hand drawn by me.
There you go.
You know, so I tried to replicate it like 5 times. You know, but yeah, we made that CD. We listened to it. We realized that it sucked, and then we did nothing else with that. You know, and we made another CD like a year later. But no, like one of the guys, the band broke up, and I think I may have spoken to that guy maybe once or twice since then. And the other guy, like if I remember back home, like if I run across him, but it's been years.
Yeah.
So moved on in life.
I always enjoyed reading Zero matches, knowing that match writing isn't for everyone. Did you dig writing matches?
So I dug writing the matches mainly because I like controlling the story, you know, like I don't like handing off, you know, part of the story I'm telling, be like, okay, now you take it from there, you know, and then give back to me.
Hopefully
you
read everything I've written over the last month.
Right. You should assume like no one's read anything you've ever written, you know, because it's, first off, no one's going to invest that much time, you know, in everything
from everyone.
Yeah, and also like everyone who is creating something, they're a creator. They're not so much a consumption person. Like that, they're a creator for a reason because they like to create this stuff, as opposed to like a literature fan.
As opposed to a reader,
yeah, you know. So, you know, I think people read stuff that you know that they're directly connected to in their writing, or maybe it's a friend of theirs or their friends say, "Hey, we read this."
Hey, I became a fan of you through this.
Yeah, you know, so I think those things happen, but I don't think you should assume everybody or anybody is reading your stuff. You know who Kurt Vonnegut is? The writer?
Yeah, sure.
He's got like a rules of writing, but one of his rules is only write for one person, because if you try to make love to the world, your story is going to get pneumonia. So, so I kind of like just keep that principle when I'm writing, my readership, whatever it is.
Yeah. You're aiming for the judge, not anybody else.
Right. So I guess to answer the question, do I dig writing the matches? Yeah, it was fun. You don't
enjoy writing wrestling as much as you enjoy controlling the story.
Yeah, I like, being able to navigate, where it's going to end or begin and conclude.
And I think people underrate the amount of storytelling you can do through matches between the way your character interacts and the way they act in the ring.
I would say the only thing I did not enjoy about match writing is that you're dialed into a structured system.
Yep.
And so now, like, you've got to have it in by a certain time, and now the people are depending upon you, and you're like, oh, okay, now this is creating writer's block. Now I'm feeling like weird
anytime
pressure.
You're stressed, yeah.
Yeah. So, the parameters kind of take some of the fun out, as opposed to just writing a story and posting it.
Yeah.
So,
makes sense.
Yeah.
Who is a handler you would be okay not crossing paths with again? Don't say Paul Brisbane.
Could I just say Paul?
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul. It goes back to what I said earlier. Like, if you're not enjoying a conversation with somebody, or they're, being a dick or whatever, just close the browser.
Oh, can I do that here? No, I'm kidding.
yeah. There's a button. There's a red button.
Red button over there. Okay.
Yeah. So, you're always free to walk away, and it's not like, somebody who lives with you and they're on a lease with you for 8 more months.
Yep.
So,
or you ever have to see them again if you don't want to.
Yeah. They're literally, pixels on a screen.
Yeah.
So
it's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Next time someone says some shit, I'm going to say, you're a pixel.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think Lint Douglas ended up?
Now, I should clarify that Lint Douglas, because it might be confusing, because I jump back and forth between, like, the characters. So, like, Zero that's the wrestling characters. Like, if you buy a shirt, at a wrestling show, it's going to say Zero, And I've intertwined, like Zero is like a nickname picked up, but the character's named Lint Douglas. Like, that's his name. Ironically, Lint, I stole that from Rancid. So one of the, I think the singer of Rancid, his name is Lint. And so when I was trying to think of a real name, I think I was listening to some Rancid song, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That seems kind of grungy. So, not well kept. Last I heard, this is according to the last writing that I did with Zero Lint Douglas, he was living in Portland, Maine. He was working in the boat construction business, and he was living on a houseboat, so basically an RV on the water.
Yeah.
And that's, according to the last stuff that I've read / wrote, that's where he was last time.
He's hanging out in Maine these days.
Yep.
I like it. Catching lobster.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Hi, Paul, for the questions. Up next is Jamar. Considering you were one of the forefathers of HTML, GeoCities, links, RPs, fancy logos, and graphics, what do you think the next cutting-edge thing will be in F wrestling?
I'm going to keep pushing this whole deep fake thing. And I don't have an answer. Everyone's going to, I came into this after creating websites for like my band, and I learned how to do Photoshop photography because I wanted to promote my music. And, so like there's this weird intersection of what you're bringing from your personal life, your other experiences to where you are.
Yep.
So, if there's an advancement, it's because you're using other things and you're bringing it in. And then, I think Travis Bevan was the first person to use Poser in e-wrestling. And so, and I want to say that happened because he had like a early release trial version of it or something like that. And so he was just tinkering, and I could be wildly off, but I think I remember him saying something like this. Like he was tinkering and wanted to put that into like an e-wrestling capacity. And so that's an example of somebody bringing something that they're learning, not offline, but like non-e-wrestling related, and they're bringing it into what they're doing here. Yeah, and I don't think people are deliberately trying to create, a systematic change or anything like that. It's just kind of like, it's an evolution, and like evolution, like the weak things fall off and the strong things keep replicating. And then you get to where there's poser characters on CSWA's website now.
Yeah.
So number 2 from Jamar, who's your favorite FW handler that you've met in real life?
So I kind of refer to it as like the trio of folks. There's Paul and there's Jamar. And we go back like 20 years just as like, writing together conversations. Like I've met Paul, like I was passing through his hometown. We stopped off, we had dinner, we hung out, but I'm gonna have to go with Jamar on this because like, I've crashed over and like fell asleep, at the guy's house watching old WCW tapes.
Yeah.
We go hiking, and like just real life friends, so, and we even were talking about this recently about how like the pendulum has changed in this other direction where we're like, oh yeah, we used to do that thing, and so, so it's like real life has normalized to the point where, the things that brought you together are just those details.
The secondary thing.
Yeah, but we've created this whole, this whole, like a photograph of family. Yeah. And so, so when I come over, like his children are like, hey, Mr. Andy, and this and that, it's just, it is what it is. I will also say, that Jamar may be one of the best dads I've ever met, like if you see the way in which, he interacts with his children, or just his kids are some of the best kids I've ever, some kids are crazy, and wild and this and that, and they are none of that sort. And, to consistently have every kid, be, at that disposition, that says something about like who raised them, and so it goes back to, how he's raised his kids. So we'll go with Jamar there, and then we'll give him a special shout out for, something he takes pride in. Yeah.
So who was Lint Douglas behind the curtain? How does he carry himself OOC backstage?
I feel like most of the stuff I wrote was Lint Douglas behind the curtain. So, it's trickier for me to figure out who he is in the ring as opposed to who he is
backstage.
Yeah, because like half the stuff I wrote had nothing to do with writing at all. It's him and his neighborhood and the people and, the stuff that, again, would get me kicked out of, your upcoming Fed. But, that's where the focus was. As a personality, I would say he's not a Chris Jericho type guy. He's, maybe like I kind of like the more I wrote him, the more he kind of reminded me of like a character version of like the Descendants, like this punk band that even though this character was like very much from the punk rock ethos, like when I formed him, the Descendants were kind of like they weren't Kiss, they didn't have all the mohawks and the outfits. They were just dudes who played on stage.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a Greg Gaffron, I think his last name, from Bad Religion, like the singer. Same kind of thing. Like somebody who, is a thinker and, and they don't get too worked up on how they should portray themselves in appearance wise or something like that. They're just he's just a blue collar guy,
Yeah.
And I would say that's probably, what kind of person he is.
So how much money has Zero accumulated over the years, and has he done a good job saving it?
I have never seen a question like that.
Never. Knee wrestling.
Yeah, I saw it and I was like, so I gotta like, do a comparative analysis to like what the contracts are in wrestling now, and then what they were then, factor in like how much competition is there, and then like, but there's going to be a discrepancy between the high earners and the low earners, so I don't know what his contract was worth, but I do know a lot of times when I would rewrite the character and he'd be going into new Fed, it was always centered around the fact that something's happened and, he has to get a contract so he can be able to afford this new hurdle in his life.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, he didn't earn a ton in wrestling, and he's, last I heard, still works in construction.
Yeah, so he saved even less.
Yeah, so he's just a guy who goes to work.
Good question, though.
Oh yeah, it's a great question.
Psychology-wise, how would you describe Zero's in-ring style? Hardcore.
Just that whole aesthetic. It's the ECW, vibe. I like that's where the origin of that came from, and so I think I spent more time thinking about psychology-wise outside of the ring, and then inside the ring, kind of defaulted to that kind of like he's not a grappler. He's not going to like a Chris Benoit or
he's going to brawl with you and
he's going to brawl,
hit you with it.
Yeah, so
it's a bar fight,
something like that. Yeah, so more akin to something like that.
Finally, from Jamar, although I know the answer for everyone else, who's Lint's biggest rival?
Havoc. So it was, the story of Zero and Havoc, and it transcended different Feds, and like Paul and I wrote back and forth like a lot, on that, and just kind of kept evolving like the storyline, and that's one of the benefits of trying to pay attention of like the number of Feds you're in, and like the story is you can just really long term something and just see where it goes.
Yep.
And it's fun.
The beauty of wrestling is if you didn't like it, you can start over to the next Fed.
You say that.
I said the beauty of wrestling is that at the next Fed, you can just start that story over if you didn't like where it went.
You could. I mean, so when the Dudley Boys debuted in the WWF, I think at the time, they did a match, and they did the exact same spots from a match in ECW like a month prior.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're so that system obviously is there. Like they have the spots they want to hit. They know this is a good formula for a match, and and so on. So it's within the established rules of wrestling that you can try something over and see how it works.
Exactly.
I mean, they did that.
Yep.
They did that in house shows. I mean, like house show is just a touring
test.
It's no different from like a band or a stand-up comedian. They're doing the same bits. They're doing
or they're having fun, or they're just making fun of what they're doing.
Yeah, or they're so tired of playing that song that they just take it off the rails and see if they can bring it back.
See what they can try to do.
Yeah, but but I could not have when it's another Fed, because I would feel like I would be like I'm blanking on what word.
Rewriting history almost.
Rewriting history a little bit, yeah. Like, and that's like there was a story that I started in 2012, in 2002, sometime around FWO time, and I started writing and I had all the notes, and then I actually started putting it together in 2012, backdated to 2002 for a major arc, but then that was in the Ultra title, and then the Ultra title ended, so I never finished posting it. So I'm like 2 chapters shy, and so then I was like, does that count? Is that canon now, or
do I get to start that over and repost?
Do I get to? Yeah, because like, and I've reread it. I was like, there's some major like structural problems here, and if it never finished and never was published, like, can I? Yeah, so technically the conclusion never happened, so maybe I can rework this to get back to there.
There you have it.
So yeah.
Well, that's what we've got for you, Andy. I appreciate you taking the time coming on the show. This was a good time. I had a blast.
Yeah, this was great. It's so fun talking to you because normally you're helping me go to sleep at night. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like the EFED podcast, like it's been for like a month now. Like that's my bedtime. I'll listen to that.
We appreciate the listens very much, regardless if it's daytime or nighttime, whenever. We appreciate the listen, and we appreciate having you on the show and taking the time. I know it was kind of quick and impromptu, but it's been a lot of fun. I've heard about you, and now I've talked to you, and we've heard more about you.
I've heard about you, and I've heard you.
There you go.
So this is great. Thank you for having me on.
Hey folks, this is Brian, the producer, the sometimes co-host, and as you all know from the beginning of the episode, Mikey is out in the field channeling his inner Billy, as it were, running up in the Alamo, trying to find the goat. Billy, goat. Follow the money. Anyway, so we did an outro for this episode, very quick and on the fly with all the inter-domestic travel. I don't know if that's the term. Whatever. Somehow it got lost, but I'm going to try to just fill in the gaps here and say some things I think Mikey would say, and it'd be like, oh man, what a great spotlight. The first live spotlight, for that matter, with Oath Pro Wrestling. Great deal. Love to hear it. Hell, Mikey stood him up, and he still came back, and we got a great deal out of that. I hope everyone enjoys it, and definitely check them out. And check out Andy's interview. If you have not been on the Patreon, if you've not been on the legend level, now you finally get to hear it. Good for you. But you could have heard it like a month ago. And that goes for other things. So if you're not out there, if you're not on the Patreon, certainly check it out. It starts as low as $3 a month. Some good stuff out there. And I'm going to now go ahead and pitch it over to some canned Mikey from a previous episode, giving you that sweet, sweet final rundown that you all know and love to hear. Mikey?
So in the meantime, guys, please check out the Twitter machine. Check out the patreon.com/EFED podcast. Check out the YouTubes, all the things. We're happy and here to support you and talk about your Fed. If you want to be featured on the spotlight, please hit us up in the DMs. If you want to be interviewed, our list is full. I'm sorry to tell you, I've been getting a lot of requests lately. I appreciate everyone, their support and their love for the show, but we are booked up to episode 100. We've come a long way in a short time, and I'm so excited to share the journey with you. I can't wait till you tune in next week to hear the next interview and episode of the EFED podcast, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real.
The Efed podcast, only on the Atomic Jobcast Network, presented commercial free on Patreon.